Hello and welcome. This video is a complete course in how to build a model-driven app. And when I say a complete course, this is the amount of content I would usually cover in a full day of training. So lots here. I've arranged this all in a single video with chapters so that you can jump in and out if you don't want to do it all in one sitting, or skip ahead if there are some basic concepts you already know. But what we're going to do over the course of this video is build out a complete asset management app. And along the way, you're going to learn the skills you need to apply that to build your own model-driven app for your business use case. I'm providing this completely for free because I know so many people are interested in building model-driven apps, and I would like this to reach as many people as possible to get on board with this. So if you do find value in this video, please give it a like, please share, and help me to get this out to as many people as possible. Model-driven apps are part of the Microsoft Power Platform, and it's one of the types of Power Apps that you can build. And here is the use case for it. I need a database for my business. It's a database application. So the reason you would look for a model-driven app as a solution to your business problem is where you don't have a data source, or you don't have a data source, perhaps you're using Excel or SharePoint a bit beyond their limits, it's not serving you well anymore. So what we're going to do here is build out a database application using Microsoft Dataverse, which is the database platform that sits right at the heart of Power Platform. It does a number of things here. We're going to be able to easily shape our data, and as we go through this tutorial, you'll see building out data tables and building relationships between them. We also have the ability to have business process and logic, and you'll see that we can automate things and take users on a guided step-by-step process through what it is that we need them to do. There's complex security, so we'll have a look at some of the security modeling available and how we can give different permissions to different kinds of users, and that can go right down to the level of individual columns on individual tables if you need it to. It's also scalable and has a lot of storage. This goes to terabytes of data. These types of apps are used by some of the world's largest organizations, so you're not going to cap out with this in the way that you would using something like SharePoint as a data source. And you can also connect other applications. We'll have a look at how you can bring Power BI reports into your app. You can also build out a whole lot of other connected pieces here, connecting to other data sources with integrations and things if you need to do that. A little beyond this tutorial though. So then what is a model-driven app in relation to all of that? It starts with Microsoft Dataverse. That is your data source for a model-driven app. The model-driven app is essentially the front user interface that sits on top of your Microsoft Dataverse database that you're going to put together. We build that user interface with no code. This is all drag and drop, click and point stuff. So the real thought process here is in what are your data tables and how are they coming together, but the interface itself comes together really quite easily. It's all component driven. We put all the different pieces on the screen where we want them. We're working with an editor that shows us the end result, a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. And the whole thing is fully responsive and fully accessible and connected to the other Microsoft 365 tools, like the ability to export to Excel and track emails in the timeline and so on, without you having to build any of that. So we'll see how all of that comes together. Some example use cases of why you would use a model-driven app, things like managing your customer data. So for instance, you've got your accounts and contacts and you need to keep track of the activities you're doing, a very basic CRM type use case. Onboarding employees, where you're going through a process and you want to track the steps and stages in that process and keep a record of what's done and where, and you might want to automate some tasks and things off that. You could manage a complaints or ideas process all the way through to turning that into projects and tracking what's going on there, or managing an inspection process where people need to keep track of what's happening with checking up on things. Mission critical databases. This is where we see the use case for this. So if you're working on something that is absolutely key to your organization, this is the platform solution that can work for you, because it is this rich, complex, secure database capability underneath. If you have a mission critical spreadsheet, this is the moment to consider using this. And you can actually add Power Pages as well here to put that data accessible out to your customers. So if you're doing something like grants management or permit applications or customer customer service ticketing and so on, you can use it for that. This is the app that we're going to build throughout this course. It's an asset management app. This is designed for a scenario where the organization needs to manage assets. We've got laptops, phones, things like that get allocated out to the employees. We need to check the condition of them before they get allocated out. We need to know what's available. We need to be able to allocate them out to the employees, get approval if there's some exception to what they're getting, and be able to manage that end-to-end process of when they were allocated, when we're expecting them to come back, and when they actually did come back. So we're going to build all of this out, data tables that relate to each other, as well as that end-to-end business process automation. What we've got in the model-driven app itself here down the side is the left-hand navigation menu. You can go into the recently used items. So if you're coming back into it to use something that you've used frequently, that makes it nice and easy, or you can pin records that you want to come back to over and over again. Navigation here back to our dashboards. We'll talk about that in a moment there, sitting right in the middle of the screen. Here's our list of employees, our list of assets, and the list of asset allocations. There's a toolbar across the top. Watch this change as we click around the app, because you'll see a lot of cool commands that are in there. All of this stuff is just built with the model-driven app. You don't have to do it by hand. There's a search at the top. This is using search across the whole database underneath, so that you can search by keyword, bit of fuzzy logic in there that makes it very easy to find what you're looking for. So in the middle here, we have a dashboard. This is showing us a list of our available assets. We've also got a chart on the side here, which is showing us the assets by their status, what's available and what's already allocated, as well as a list at the bottom here of the allocations that are in progress and where they're up to. And I can click through on all of these things to check out what's going on. Let's have a look first at our list of employees. So I can click on the side here and that will navigate me through. You'll see this bar at the top has changed. We've got some settings in here that allow you to do things like export to Excel, visualize things in Power BI. All of that's built into the app. And this is called a view, where we've got columns and we can sort and filter by those columns, which I'll show you in a moment. Let's click through and have a look at Sandra here. This is a form, so we're going to configure this. We've got sections on the form, so we've got a section here at the top for her contact information, another section here for the address, timeline in the middle, which is allowing us to track all of the activities, emails, tasks, phone calls and things that we've sent and engaged with her, as well as some other information here. This is a link through to another person in the database who is her line manager. We've got a profile picture for her, and then we've also got a tab here which allows us to see the assets that have been allocated to her. So we can see that we've got a laptop which has an allocation date and a return due date, which is 3 years from the date that it was allocated. I can click straight through to that actually to have a look at what's going on there. And this is a screen where we've got a business process flow across the top. So this is our asset allocation screen that's showing us a process of something's been requested, approved, we've done some kind of check on it, and it's been allocated out. But what this is bringing together, and this is where we've got these data tables related to each other, is the name of the employee. We've got a link to the line manager who made the request. This is a link to the particular asset that's been allocated. And we can see on the side here that we've got visibility of those things. So the employee is Sandra, and here is visibility. This is read only, can't click on it, of her. And this is the asset, and that is the details about the asset in there. I'm going to take you through how we create this end-to-end process and build it. I'm also going to show you in a minute the experience for the user of doing it. Let's have a look at one final thing before we do that, which is the asset itself. So we've got this ability here to see all the details about the asset. You can put a longer description in here. I haven't put too much into that, as well as the allocation. So we can track for this particular asset what's happened to it over time. So I hope you can see as I'm clicking around here how this is a truly relational database and quite different from something you might work with on a spreadsheet or on a SharePoint list. From each of these things, we can see what's going on. From inside the contact, I've got what assets have been allocated and where are those things up to. From the asset itself, I can see the history of allocations, and then we can bring these things together in an allocation process. So let's have a look at creating one of these from scratch. Let's say that Sandra also needs a phone. We can go into the list of assets here, and I can sort and filter and see what's available. This is showing me a list of all of the active assets in the system. I can also switch the view to see a list of the available assets, because some of them might have already been allocated to somebody else. Then I can go in here and narrow this down. So we're going to filter this by equals phone, because we only want to see those things. And you can imagine if this is more comprehensive, you can filter by, very long lists of data here. And we might want to say newer to older. So let's say we're picking up the newest item first. We are going to issue her. We have a look at what the options are. And based on, what's going on for her role, we're going to issue her with this iPhone 14. So we can go in and have a look at all of that information there. From here, I can actually create that asset allocation if that all looks good. So we'll go in here and create this. So this is going to be a phone for Sandra Kellett. We look up that employee. So this is connecting it to that other record in the system, and I can start typing her and pop her in there. And then the allocation date we'll put in as today and save and close that. Now that's created that record. I can go in and click through, and here is my allocation record. Exactly the same as what we were looking at before, but you'll see in this case that the process hasn't been started yet. We can go in and see who it was requested by. So in this case, it was requested by her line manager. And here's the process across the top. So we're going from that request. So we've got who it's requested by, what the asset is, and whether it's outside the policy or not. Let's say we've requested something outside the policy. She wasn't actually entitled to a phone quite this good, but we're making an exception. I want you to watch what happens here. Two things will happen when I toggle this switch from no to yes. Are you ready? Oh, did you spot it? What did you spot? I'm going to give you another chance there. There we go. Should have seen two things. Approval popped up in the process bar, and reason popped up here with a red asterisk, which means it's mandatory. Let's see that again. So what we're doing here is applying some business rules to make sure that something has to happen. So we're saying, yep, this is outside the policy. And we're going to say exception requested by manager or something like that, whatever the reason, but we have to put the reason in. And then what happens is we've got this approval stage that wasn't in the process before. We move it through to the next stage. This is triggering something in Power Automate to run an approval flow. So we're going to click on that to run the flow. We'll give it a second to come up here. And I'm doing this in real time. Here we go. So we're going to say, yes, let's run that flow. So that needs to go to the manager to approve. And what happens is the manager will get a notification in Microsoft Teams to approve that particular thing. Let's bring that one across here. So we've got Dan here. This approval has come through. There we go. Exception requested by manager. So we've got that coming through. That's going to Dan who made that request, and he can say, yep, that's fine. All good. And approve that request. All right, let's pop Dan back over to the side here. We'll give this record a refresh. And then we can see that that approval status has come through as approved. So we're good to go. To the next stage here, we have an asset check, and we need to make sure that the asset is in satisfactory condition. So we've actually got another table here that's doing that. So we've got our asset checks here. So someone would be responsible for doing this check. We're going to go phone asset check. The check is on the allocation rather than the return. So we might want to be checking it as it's being allocated out as well as when it's being returned. The date is today that we're checking it. Great condition, long battery life, and so on. Now this is actually rich text. This is something else you can do in here. So we could go through and make this bold. We can put highlights in here. So you've got this ability to do all sorts of things like that. Check result is that it is satisfactory, and we have a little rating element in there as well. We can save and close that, and that's created a related record in here. So far we've got a person, we've got an asset, this process is bringing them both together, and then there's another related piece of that, which is the checking process, and now that's sitting in there. So in this whole asset allocation process, we might have different checks along the way, the check when it was allocated out and the check when it was returned, and we've got that complete record of that stored here. So asset check is done. We can say that that's satisfactory. We can automate that. I'll show you another example of the automation of that. Here's the allocation date that's been filled in as we've done all of those processes. So now what I'm going to do is click through into the asset itself, and we'll see that the allocation status here has changed to allocated where it was available before. If I go back to my main dashboard here, you'll see that chart has changed as well. That was a 1 and a 6 before, so one more asset has been allocated. So that's our end-to-end application with some automation and business process flow that we're going to go through in this course. You'll also see in here, I've got a sample Power BI dashboard, so I'll show you how you can bring a more sophisticated dashboard in here as well, if you want to do different things with Power BI. All right, are you excited to build this? I'm excited to show you how to build this. Let's go. To get the most out of this course, you're really going to want to follow along hands-on. If you've already got an account set up with premium Power Apps capability, good to go, skip ahead to the next chapter. If you don't, best thing you can do if you've got a work or school account is to sign up for a Power Apps developer plan. I'll show you that, and then I'll show you another alternative if you don't have a work or school account. So if you do have that work or school account, go to this site here for Power Apps developer plan. Click on Get Started Free. This is a premium license that won't expire. This is the best way to do it if you can. All you need to do is put in your work or school email address there. It'll recognize that you already have other Microsoft 365 services and so on that are provided there. You just need to go in and choose your country. I'm all the way up at the top of the list here in Australia. There we go. All right. Put in a phone number. It needs to be a real phone number because it is actually going to send you an SMS or call you to check that. Confirm all my details. Yes, thanks. I would like to get started. And then that will redirect you into your Power Apps Maker portal. Now you'll find that this has created an environment. We're going to talk about environments, which is in your name, and that's where you'll work. So if you switch across into that one there, select it from the list, then you'll find you've now got this premium Power Apps capability. The way you know this has worked is that you will see that you've got Dataverse tables. So if you go across here into Dataverse and tables, you'll see a bunch of the standard tables are there, and all of that capability is ready to go. If you're working in an environment where you don't have that, you're going to need it. Now, if you don't have a work or school account and you come through the Power Apps developer plan, you're going to have a problem like this. So if you're working with something like a Gmail address, it's going to say, no, that's a personal email address, you can't use it. So in that case, what we're going to do is sign up for an Office 365 trial account. Now this one will have a limited time. I'll also pop a link here for the Microsoft 365 developer plan, which gives you longer. It's a bit more of a sign up process if you want to pursue that, but this is the quickest and easiest way to get started for now. So you're going in here, you're going to sign up for a free 1-month trial. Again, you just pop all of your details in here with a real phone number because it will check up on you. Put in your name or the company name, it doesn't really matter. And again, choose your country from the list. Now, the next thing you're going to need to do here is choose what your domain name is. So be prepared to think of something here that's going to be unique to you that you can remember. So when we get through to the next step, sends you the verification code. As you would expect, you've probably done this many times before. You'll get that verification code and have to put that in. All good. Verified, all legit. And so here we go. Now we have to put this domain name in. So I've put peter123.onmicrosoft.com. When you put that in, it'll tell you if it's already used. So you just have to go for something a little more unique than that. Generally, it's not too hard to come up with something unique if you use some numbers or your name or whatever. Password for the admin account, and you're all signed up. So this is now giving you that Office 365 E3 account. You can get started, and from there, you can now go back and use that email address. So let's just copy that from there. There we go, grab that. Go back into the Power Apps for developers because now this counts as a work email address. So we can go back here into your work email address, paste that in, next, and it is good to go because it's accepting that. So as I said, this will expire after 30 days, but at least it gives you a free way to get started. You don't have to put credit card details or anything in there. And same experience then, it'll allow you to click through, set up your country, phone number, and so on, and it'll take you straight through to that Power Apps page where you can get started. So let's just go through that, get started here. There's my user ID. Make sure you copy and paste that. Keep it somewhere safe because it's not something you're necessarily going to remember. And again, we are going through into the Power Apps experience here. Don't worry about your contact information. You can put all of that in, or you can just skip out of that if you prefer not to do it. It just gives you that information. It'll provide some sort of extra support and help along the way. Skip through these things if you get those there. And again, at the top here in the environment, we're going to go Contoso. And if you don't see your new environment straight away, because it sometimes does take a couple of minutes, give the screen a refresh, or like a Control F5 to do a hard refresh. You'll see that one there with your name. Select it, and once again we've got that Dataverse capability, so you'll know you've got this sorted out if you're going in there and you've got the Dataverse tables and you're good to go. All right, so one way or another you've got a trial set up and we're ready to begin building our app. To get started, navigate in your browser to make.powerapps.com. This is where the whole build experience is going to happen. You don't need to download any software or anything. It's all built online here. Two core concepts to get you started. One is environments and one is solutions. And these are the things that allow you to build all of the assets, have them together, and put the security and permissions that you need around them, which we'll come back to later in the course. So top right of the screen here, we have the environment switcher. So the environment is where we can actually create different environments for different purposes. So you might have something where you're developing an app and then you push it through into testing and production. If you're working in a larger organization, you might have different environments for different types of users and different types of apps, because you can have different people with different levels of permissions in each of those environments. So you'll have some people who are working on developing apps, and then perhaps the majority of the organization in the production environment. So that's the concept of an environment. For what we're doing now, chances are you won't have a long list of things like I've got here. You'll have something that says default and then perhaps the one that you created earlier with your name. Do not build a model-driven app in the default environment. You won't be able to do it. You do need an environment that you've created. So in that previous section where we signed up for a developer plan, you'll have that environment or whatever other environment you've got. I've got one here called asset management. If you've got the ability to create your own environments, you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, just use that one with the developer plan. Step one. Also make sure if you're coming back to this, switch there, because it will come back to the default environment every time and then you won't be able to find anything. So always check, am I in the right environment? Okay, next thing we need to do is create what's called a solution. So I'm going to navigate over here, and a solution is this is not a very technical term now, but a bucket where we're going to put all of our assets in. So as we start to build our data tables and those business process flows and all the different logic, we're grouping it together. And this allows you to move your build assets across different environments. So again, in that real life scenario, you would be developing in a developer environment, you create a solution and you're packaging it up. It's like a zip file, if you imagine, that you can take across to different environments. So we always want to be building inside a solution. It gives you visibility of what changes you've made and what assets you've built. Just to give a little bit of an idea of where we're heading, this is the solution, the finished solution you'll have by the end of the course. So I've got an asset management solution and I've got a bunch of different things in here. You can see I've got tables, processes, security roles and so on. Don't be scared off by this. A lot of these things just kind of get added as we build it out, but you'll see I've got a big collection here of a whole lot of different things that make up my model-driven app. So when you first come into solutions, there's a bunch of sort of default things here, which is just the baseline of Dataverse and the capability that we've got. So we go into here and say, let's create a new solution. I'm going to call this asset management. And we need to select a publisher here. Now, again, in a real life scenario, you can have a publisher that is, your name or your organization's name. Let's go ahead and do that. There's a couple of options in here that you can just choose the default, but we'll go in here and I'm going to give myself a name as the publisher here. This will need to have a display name and a schema name. So the schema name, you'll want to have sort of no spaces in it. And then the prefix I can put in here 2 to 8 characters long. So I'm just going to put in my initials in there, but you can do whatever you want. So organizationally, you might set up a publisher that is more like your actual organization name if you've got a team of developers working. So, go with whatever makes the most sense to you in there. Once that new publisher is created, then we can select it from the list. So I'm going to choose myself there as the publisher. Version, it's the first version of my app. Don't need to do anything else there. and create, and now I have got my solution. So throughout this course, whenever we start to create new assets, we're always going to start in the solution, and we're going to be bringing in a combination of standard things that already exist in the platform and creating new ones. But this is our starting point, and you'll see we've got nothing in there, but we're going to always navigate back to here to bring those things in. Microsoft Dataverse comes with a bunch of standard tables out of the box, so you don't have to create everything from scratch when you're building your model-driven app. I'm just going to show you this in my environment here for asset management. If I click on Dataverse and tables, these are the standard tables that are provided for me. So you'll see I've got tables for account, address, appointment, various other things here, contact. It is worth getting familiar with those out-of-the-box tables because you don't want to rebuild something that already exists. These are very, very rich. So for instance, contact is something that many apps are going to use. You've got people involved or accounts involved where you've got a scenario where you've got organizations and people who work for them. If I click through into that table, and this is starting to navigate you around the experience that we're going to have here, we've got the table properties, we've got the different columns that are available in the table. So these are the attributes or fields. So you'll see for a contact, we've got things like the address already in there, and like 3 addresses already in there, their birthday, the company phone number, a whole bunch of stuff about permissions for contacting them, first name, and so on. So this is a very, very rich table. You don't have to use this at all. You don't have to use all of it, and you can actually modify it and do other things to it that you want to be doing. Navigation around here, breadcrumb trail, we're going to go back into that contact again, and we're going to come to this as we work through building the app, but this is where we can build out those forms and views that we saw in the earlier demo, as well as the more sophisticated things like charts and dashboards and so on. So as I said, lots of default tables in here, especially account, contact, all of the things related to different types of activities, emails, tasks, and phone calls and stuff. Don't go creating any of that. You've got all of that there, and you can just use it and modify it as you want. So the first thing we're going to do is bring that contact table in, because we're going to use that to be the place where we're putting the information about our employees. So I've got my blank solution here, and the first thing I'm going to do is to bring that existing table in. So from here, I'm going to say add existing, and you can see as you start to look around here, and it's worth sort of poking around a bit, there are lots of different components we can use in our app. You'll start to get a sense of how sophisticated it is. So I'm going to add an existing table. I can search here. I can just type in contact at the top and find that table. Let's select that and select next. And now it's asking, do I want to bring existing objects in? So if I include all objects, it will bring into my solution all of the columns and forms and views and stuff, which is a lot for the contact table. With your solution, you only want to bring in the things that you're actually working on. You don't want to bring the whole lot in, because part of the thing with the solution is just seeing the pieces that you've been working on. So I'm actually not going to bring in all of the different things. I could select particular things to bring in, but I just want to bring in that table as a starting point. So I'm going to click add in there, and we will give that a moment to, there we go. So now within my asset management, I've got the contact table, and I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to modify that because we want to bring in some information around the employee and sort of change things around a little bit from the standard contact table. So I'm going to open that. I'm going to click on columns here to go through and see what the columns are and add some new columns. So what you'll see, unlike when I showed you the full thing before, there's no columns here. That's because when I added it into the solution, I just brought the table. I didn't bring all of the other bits and pieces. So it doesn't mean there's no columns there, I just didn't bring them in. So now what I'm going to do is add some columns of my own. And we're going to show lots of examples as we work through the course, because this concept of building out tables, we'll build some from scratch, but we're adding these fields, attributes, columns, they're called columns in here, but it's the same thing. So for a contact, the first name is a column. So what we're going to do here is add some columns in here to bring in the line manager and the profile picture. So if I go back to my original app, this is what I'm doing here. Some of these components are all standard, first name, last name, email address, and the timeline is already there, but I'm bringing in this additional piece here of looking up to an additional person in the system who is the line manager, and also bringing that profile picture in there. So that's what we're doing at this point. So we're going to create a column here, which is called line manager. And each time you create a column, you're going to choose the data type, and we will do an example of as many as we can fit in for this course. So you can see here we can choose for something to be a single line of text. We've got numbers, dates and times and various things in here. What I'm creating here is a lookup, which is that experience of saying, I want to connect this to another record in the system. This actually creates a relationship in the database between the tables. Now, in this case, my related table is contact. I'm actually creating a lookup between a contact and another contact. So that's something that we can do. So the line manager here is, and this experience of the lookup, the experience in the app is this little magnifying glass and the live link to that other record. Incidentally, when you hover over it, all of that stuff, that just happens, by the way. We don't even have to build that part. So what I'm going to do here is choose that and save that. And that is done. The next thing I'm going to do is create another column for that profile picture. So we'll just give this a second to save. And there it is. Another new column here. So this one is going to be the profile picture. So you can have image columns. I'm using it for a profile picture here, but this is actually also useful if you want to do something that is used for, say, the assets that I've got in here. If you wanted to take a photo of the laptop or whatever and save it in there, you could do that. So it's an image, and that's pretty much it. We're just going to save that. And so each time you create these columns in the system, you'll see them get added into the solution. So now we've got the asset management solution, my table, contact table, and here are the columns that I've added in here. And you'll see as I start to add these in, that prefix for my publisher is in there as well. So it's all identifying that it's me who's built these things inside that solution. All right, now what I'm going to do is create a form for my contacts. So this is the concept of a form. This is what we're seeing on the screen here. When I open one of those records, what I'm seeing on the screen here is called a form. So we'll go back into here and we navigate back down the breadcrumb hierarchy back to that contact table in there. And I'm going to go into forms here and create a new form. I don't want to use one of the standard ones that comes with contact. I want to put things where I want to put them. So I can go in here and say, let's create a new form. We're going to come to these other types of forms a little bit later in the course. The main form is the main form when you open a row or record in the system. So this is a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. You'll see as I start to build this out that it looks like the back end of exactly what we were having a look at before. When I create a new form from an existing table, like a contact, it comes with some stuff already there. So you'll see I've already got contact information, timeline, various other things. If we've created a table from scratch, the behavior is a little bit different. So a lot of these pieces are already on the screen because I'm working with the existing out-of-the-box contact table. So some of the work is done for me. First thing I'm going to do is change the display name on the side here. So we're going to call this one employee, because that's what we're using it for. Now, just to navigate you around, we've got a lot of properties on the side here. So as we click and point, we're going to change the properties over here. We've got all of the different columns on the side here, but there's also a navigation menu here that allows us to switch between components, which we're going to build on the form, and the columns that we're going to bring and drag in, as well as some other things that are more advanced that we'll get to there as well. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of some of the standard stuff. So if I scroll down a little bit here, you'll see that there's a map functionality in there. I'm just going to click on that whole section and delete it, or I can use the delete key on my keyboard because I don't want to use the maps in this particular scenario. So we get rid of it. And then what I want to do is to add another section in here. So you'll see we've got, and you can actually zoom right up here if you want to get a closer look at that. You'll see we've got sort of the first name, last name, and so on, and all of the addresses in there. What I want to do is separate that out. So you can see I've got contact information. This is called a section, that white box, and I want a different section here for the address because I think that's a little bit clearer. So in my components menu over the side here, I can work on the components menu. I want to add a one column section. So if I click on that, you'll see it will add it below where I was just working. So it's a little bit sort of off the bottom of the screen there. So I can scroll back out if I needed to, if I can't see it properly on the screen. So once I've clicked on that, then what I want to do is go over to the properties part on the right hand side here. I'm going to change the label there to address. I quite like to use all caps for those headings. All right, scroll down a bit and we can see it. And then what I want to do is to move the address columns into there. Now, this is a bit of a special property, the address. If I click on it, it's all together. So this is something that this is sort of all treated as one thing. You can bring them across as separate pieces if you want to, but I'm going to take that and drag it down there. So the address is a special, it's like a composite set of things you'll find for most other things. Like if I worked with email, for instance, I'm just dragging and dropping one thing at a time. So now I've got my address in a whole separate section. I can get rid of some things I don't want here. So fax, I don't know about you, no one really uses fax anymore as far as I can tell. Let's get rid of that. And account name here, which is a lookup to an organization, because we're treating this as a list of employees. I don't want to use that. So again, I'm just going to delete that. So we've got a good starting point here. What else do I want to do? I'm going to add another section in here for the employee information. So this is going to sit over on that right-hand column there. We're going to create something else. So I'm going to create another one column section. Again, it'll drop it in sort of, so watch where your cursor is because it drops it in wherever it is. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to drag it up here. This one is sort of a standard out of the box thing that comes with the contact form that I don't want. Let's get rid of that. So we've got our new section here, and I'm going to call this one employee information. Okay. And then we're going to drag and drop some things in here. So you can collapse that out so that you can see more of what's going on. So I want to bring the job title and the department in here. So there's job title. So you can see I can just grab that and drag it across to there. And the department as well. Department isn't on the form. So let's bring in columns that are not yet on the form. So I'm going to go over here into this section, and we've got all of these things here. Now, if you're working on a table that doesn't have much, you're fine, but there's too many things to search for here. So what I'm going to do is just search for department so I can find it. There it is. Grab that and drag and drop it in there. And then I also want to bring in the line manager and the profile ones that I've just used. So we'll get rid of that search. Let's search for line manager. There we go. Bring that one in there, and also the profile picture, and bring that across to there. All right, looking good. Now, if I wanted to change the widths of some of these things, because it feels to me a bit like that's a bit squished up now, let's bring our properties back out again here. Click on the entire tab here. So this is the summary tab. And what I'm going to do here is we can see the formatting of the layout has 3 columns, 33, 42, 25. Let's even that up a little bit here. So we're just going to go 33, 33, 33, and that feels like a much better adjustment. So we can just change those column widths there. All right, let's save that. And then what we want to do is change the form settings so that it's at the top of the list. So the experience here, if I go back into my app, is that you can actually have multiple forms. So you can have, there's the original contact form, employee form. So depending on what you're doing, if it's something more complex, you might want different groups of users to see different pieces of information. So the system does allow you to have that and apply security and permissions, or even for the same group of users to be able to see, different versions. You might want them to switch across and see it in different ways. So what we want to do here, once that's saved, is go into the form settings to set the order so that this one will be the default. This is the one we want to come up at the top. So if we go in here and go to form order, then we've got our contact employee and information. Employee is the one I've just created. So I'm going to just grab that, drag it to the top of the list, and save and publish. And that means now that when I'm working in my app, that's the one that will come up first, unless I do something more complex with different users having different ability to see the different forms. But by default, that's going to come back up to the top. All right, we've finished making our form. We'll just give that a second to save and publish. And then we're going to go back to our solution and create some other pieces around the contact. So back. And sometimes you have to press that back button a second time. Usually you have to press it twice to get back into your solution from the form for some reason. So that's navigated us back to our form. And you'll see, because we're building from within the solution, as we create all of these different, build assets, they just get added to the solution. So you'll see now with my table contact forms, there's the employee form that I just created. Navigate back up once they're in the breadcrumb trail, and we've got all of the properties and things here as well. So now what we're going to do is create a view, which is the experience. Again, if I go back to my app here and click on this is the view, which is the column setup that we see. And you can put whatever columns you want in here. You can also have different views, as we saw in the demo where we looked at the assets or the active assets. So I'm going to create a new view in here. Actually, sorry, what we're going to do is add an existing view. So I'm going to bring in the existing active contacts view because that's one that's sort of close enough to what I want. We're going to build out some more sophisticated views for the other things. So we're just going to add that one in there and go in and change some of the things about it. So this is one that's got us a starting point here as I click through. This is a really nice, easy interface here. We've got the full name, email, company name, business phone. Let's change that around a little bit because we want to see the job title. So full name and email is fine. Let's get rid of company name. So we can just go in there and delete. Again, we can remove that. And I'm going to bring in the department. So there it is there. And I can just click on that and it'll put it on the right hand end. And also, what else did we want in here? The job title. And bring that in. Now it might make more sense to have job title before department, so I can just grab that and put it in the right order. Let's expand those columns a little bit so that we've got a bit more width on those things. We can do some more sophisticated things with filtering and sorting views, which again we will do later in the course. Save that. Now just on the save publish thing, saving is kind of it's a familiar concept, right? You're saving as you go. Publish, we're going to save until the end. Save, publish it. At the end, publishing kind of pushes it live so that you can start to see it, but you don't need to publish all the way through. We're going to build a whole lot of stuff, save it, and then when we're ready to start testing, then we publish it and push it live. So we are going to come back to publish. All right, let's go back into the solution now. And I think we're done with the contact table. So back to the contact table there. We're actually going to go through now and create a whole new table from scratch. So far what we've done is modify an existing table. I'm going to back right up the hierarchy here to my tables. And instead of what we did before, which is add existing, we're going to add a new table. And we're going to create that table, which is for the assets, the list of the phones and the laptops and things. So new table. The display name of this table is asset and the plural name is assets. And so we've got advanced options in here. So there's lots of things in here that you can start to enable. So enable attachments. We might want to have some kind of, I don't know, warranty document or whatever. Within the advanced options, we've got a bunch of other things in here around ownership and so on. We can bring in an image here. So this is about having an icon on the side. So you'll see I've got like a little barcode image in there. These are just SVG or PNG files, 16 by 16 pixels. There's plenty of them online, or you can kind of grab a screenshot of something from an icon in PowerPoint or however you want to create them so that you can have those in there rather than just having a default icon. So what we'll do here is go in and create a new table image. So I'm going to go and say, let's create a new, it's called a web resource. And then I just go in and choose the image that I want. So I'm going to choose that from my desktop here. I've got something called asset icon. So that's come in. I'm going to give it a display name. So you can see there's the asset icon PNG image. I'm going to give it a display name of asset icon. The name here, just all in lowercase. It's a PNG format and that's it. So that's now saved in there and I can use that as the icon for my table. All right, some other things in here. So we want to go through some of these other advanced options and see what else we want. So we want to make this an option when we're setting up SharePoint document management because we want to be able to store attachments. There are lots of other things you can do here. I won't go super deep into this, but as you go more into your experience of building model-driven apps, there's lots of other bits and pieces that can be done here. For instance, appear in search results. Let's select that one as well because we might want this one to be something that you can search as you're looking for assets in the database. All right, save. Now I want you to watch what happens because what I've done is created a new table. All I've done so far is give it a name and an icon so that we've got something in there. But as we save this, it will add it into the solution, but what it's doing is creating a whole lot of stuff around the security and the auditing of the table. So as soon as this is created, you're going to see in here things like a whole lot of columns that you'll see I didn't actually do. Created by, created on, modified by, modified on, owner, all of those kinds of things, and a primary key and a primary name, and all of those things are already sorted out for you. So here's my asset table. Let's go in and have a look at the list of columns and you'll see what I mean. And I'm recording this in real time. Look at all of this stuff that's done. So there's a whole lot of things in here. There's our primary name column. There is actually also a GUID, a unique ID that you don't see here that's doing that. So you don't have to sort any of those things out. That's all done. So this is all that scaffolding that allows you to have the security and ownership and auditing and all of those kinds of things. You don't have to explicitly build it just by saying new table, boom, sort it. So now you just focus on creating the columns that you want to see at the front end of things. So what I'm going to do first, the primary name column is what happens when we go in here. So for instance, the primary name of a person is the primary name. If I go back into my asset management here, you'll see that I'm using like an ID number here as the primary name. So the primary name is what happens. It sits at the top here. So think of this as you're deciding what to do with your primary name. Every table record has to have a primary name. It can either be, like I said, when it's a person, it's easy, but if it's an asset like this, it's like the heading, if you think of it as the heading for the record. So that can be words, or in this case, it makes more sense for that to be a number. So what I'm going to do, you can actually change it. It doesn't have to be called name. I'm going to choose this one and change it to asset ID. And then your choices for the primary name column, you can either have plain text or you can have an auto number. And for me, I just want this to be an auto number. I don't want to kind of give it another name. We can have it with a prefix, a number of digits. You've got a bunch of different options in here. So what we're going to do here is set it up so that we've got the asset ID. What did we choose? So we've got something like AST for asset and a number that starts there. So you'll see if I put in that prefix AST, maximum 4 digits, and it's giving you a preview of that. So you could start with more digits or a different seed value or whatever, but that's good enough. So we're going to save that, and that's my primary column already sorted out in there. Now what I'm going to do is add in the asset name itself. So you'll see that what I've got here is a sort of a name, but I'm not using that as the primary name. So we're going to put that one in there, new column. This one is called asset name, and this one is a single line of text. What you can do here is go down into the advanced options, and you'll see you've got a maximum character count. Now, chances are the asset name isn't going to go over 100 characters, but if you think it might, you can extend that out a little bit to to make sure that you've got enough room in there. Next up, we're going to create the description column. So you'll see I've got a bunch of text in there. This one we do want to allow more text, and we're going to do something a bit different. I'm going to create a new column, which is a description. And this time, instead of single line of text, I'm going to go along here, and you can see I've got different options where what I want to choose here is actually a text area. We're going to use rich text again later. You saw the rich text editor in the demo. A text area allows you to have sort of something like this that's say multiple lines of text that you want to be working with, whereas the rich text editor also gives you all those ability to do, bold, underline, and so on. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of different things. So we've got that text area in there. Always go into the advanced options for the text area, because a maximum character count of 100 doesn't make a lot of sense. We're going to set this to 4,000, which is actually the maximum. Little trick here, if you can't remember what the maximum is, just put in something ridiculous and it will prompt you. So there we go, 4,000 is the maximum size for the text area. Now, I need a few other things in here. We've got the serial number. So the serial number here is a text again. So wrong screen there. We're going to go new column, and this one is called a serial number. Just be aware when you're choosing between text and numbers, even though this is called a serial number, it's definitely a single line of text and not a number. Only use a number if you want it to behave as a number. So if you're going to add something up, or if it genuinely is a number, if it is a piece of text that's called a number, like a serial number, that's not actually behaving as a number. It's actually just a string of text that happen to be numbers. So just get that distinction clear in your head as you're doing those things. We also have the acquisition date. When did we acquire? Acquisition date, when did we acquire the asset? And this one is going to be a date and time, and we've got the format choice here of date and time or date only. Date only makes a whole lot more sense there for the acquisition date. we have the purchase value. How much was it? So this could be a number. We've actually got a special option in here. So let's call this one purchase value, a special option in here called currency. And if you're using currency, we're not going to build it in this app, but it allows for currency conversions. So you'll see when you create this one, when it comes up, we'll just scroll down because you can see all these things as I'm adding them in, they're coming in here, that as I have a look at this purchase value, you'll see here we've got the base and the main currency. So that's allowing it to do some more sophisticated things if that's something that you want to do. Next thing we've got is the asset type. So you'll see here, this is a drop-down list of choices. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a new column called asset type. And this one is a choice. And then we have the option to say, do we want to synchronize this with a global choice? Yes, recommended, or no. So this is something we'll show you a little bit later where you're using a choice in multiple places, something like an approval, or if something's satisfactory or unsatisfactory. If you want to use the options over and over again, you can have them as a global choice. For now, I'm just going to use this one as a local choice. It's a little bit simpler to set up, but I will show you the other example as we work through the course. So my choices here, I'm just going to go with phone and laptop and other equipment. So obviously in a real world scenario, you could have that. Notice here that this is giving it a schema value. So as we create the database, we're putting in the front facing names of everything, but we're also getting this kind of numeric unique number underneath everything. Sometimes when you create a flow in Power Automate to automate off this, you might need to come back and reference those numbers. So just be aware that that's where they are. You can also put in colors for the different things here, and there are some display elements that allow you to see those for this one. I'm not going to worry about that. You've also got the option of a default choice. It doesn't make any sense here because you're not defaulting to any one thing. So we're not going to choose anything there. All right, and that is it for our asset table in terms of creating the actual table itself with the columns. So then what we need to do is to create this form. Again, when I click through, I want the elements on the screen so that I can see where they are. Navigate back one level up the breadcrumb trail there into asset. And then what we do is go into this section here to say forms, and we're going to create a new form of type main form. This is now just a matter of dragging things into the sections on the screen. So I'll give it a second to load up. And as we go through, we'll do some different examples of things that have multiple tabs and things that have multiple columns and things. This one, what we're doing, this is a 2-column layout. So what we want to do with this first section here, and you sort of have to just watch where you're clicking, right? So as I go along, see, I've clicked on, that's the actual table column. That is now the whole section, so you can see where that highlight is going. So as I've got that, now I can go over into the formatting here, and I want to set that to be a 2-column format. You don't see it straight away because there's nothing in that column. I'm also going to grab the owner here and bring it up. If I drag it, there's a header at the top, so we can have things in that header. So that sort of shows you up here, we've got an allocation status and the owner up in the header there. So we can bring these things in. So now we've got our asset ID. We are going to bring in the asset name. Now I can just click on that and it will start to bring it across, but because of that 2-column layout, I actually want it to be there instead. So it's probably easier to drag and drop. I'm going to bring the serial number in here, the asset type, and the acquisition date, purchase value, and then I'm going to bring my description over into that right-hand column. And then with that selected, so that just the description is selected, not the whole piece, I can go along here and say, let's give that a little bit more height. So you'll see as I expand that out, that it's taking up more space on the form. So let's sort of make it so that it's roughly even with the other side. All right, we're going to save that, and I've realized that we forgot to add something. So this is a good real life scenario because you will actually come across this. What I also want here is this allocation status, where we have the option to say it's available, allocated, or withdrawn. So if you do forget to do that, we can go back here and create another form field from within here if it's a simple type, but if it's a choice, we actually need to go back into the editor where we were before. So we just go back a level, again, double click on that to take you back to the solution. So let's create this, this other acquisition, what have we called it? The allocation status in here. So here's my asset table. I am going to go back into my columns, add a new column, and this one is called allocation status. This is also a choice, and this is something where I might want to use this somewhere else. So let's go ahead and make this a global choice. So we're creating a new choice. So this is where we've gone. This is a choice column, but now I'm going away and creating my choices as a global set that I can reuse again. So it sort of takes you through a couple of layers here. So this one is going to be called allocation status. And the labels here, we've got available, allocated, and withdrawn. All right, we can save that. And now the column on this particular table, we want to use that one that we just created, which is that allocation status. And in this case, it does make sense to have a default status because when we first add an asset into the system, it's available. We're sort of logging them as they come in, so you want it to be available. So that makes sense to do that. So we're going to save that, and then we can go back and add it onto our form in the header. So again, we will navigate back to the asset table, find that form that we were just working on. So navigate through to forms and asset main form. And give it a second to come up. So I've got my columns here. It's not, I don't really need to search because it's a nice small list. So I'm going to grab allocation status, bring that up into the header, and then I can change the order of that around in the header. You can fit 4 columns in that header visible at the same time. So you want to be selective about how you use that, and we will save that. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a view for our asset table. So that is what we're doing here when we're looking at the asset columns along the side here where we're putting those things in. That's called a view. So we navigate back to the solution. I gave that a double click then. That was actually a much better way to do it. Back into the asset breadcrumb trail, and this time we're going to create a view. And there's already created, when I created the table, it's actually created these views for me automatically. Active assets, advanced find, and so on. These are used in other parts of the system. But when it's creating that default view, it just pretty much puts the primary name and the created on. So it's actually not a particularly useful view. So what we want to do is go in and change that. So let's bring the things in that are useful for us here. So we're going to bring in the, so we've got the asset ID, we'll bring in the asset name. So again, I can just click on that to bring it in. Serial number, acquisition date, the type, what have we called that? Asset type, and the allocation status. And I actually really don't care about created on, so I can remove that. And then we can start to move those columns around so that there's enough space for everything. All right, so that's going to be our main view of the assets. So we're going to save that one. And then what we're going to do is create another version of that view, because you saw here earlier, we have the active assets, but I can go in and change that to be available assets because I just want to see the ones that are actually available by status. So we can go in here, save as, and then give this another name. So we're going to call this one available assets and save that. And now we apply a filter. So you could, of course, filter it yourself, but where you've got this idea of, you can have alternate views, and you want to find the right balance here of not going completely overboard by creating every possible filter that anyone could ever want. But you could go in here and have some views that make it easier for the users. So for instance, in my case here, seeing all the available assets and then being able to very easily see the available, just the available assets versus all of them is a pretty common thing that people might want to do. And the user, in fact, if the person using this really just wanted to see available assets, all the time, they can actually go in here and set that as their default view from a user point of view. So you're sort of giving them some nice options there to work with. So this is my available assets. I need to put in a filter. So what we do is we go across to the allocation status column here. I am going to filter by, and we want that to be equals available, and apply. All right, so that's a filtered view. You can actually sort by different things. So this one I've got sorted in order by the asset ID, but if I wanted to sort by serial number, then I could choose that to sort in alphabetical or reverse alphabetical order. Same with dates if I wanted to sort it that way. So you choose what the default sorting is and the default filtering is, and you've got all of those options there to play around with as much as you would like. That will do for what we need to do here. So let's save that one and double click on back there to get back to our solution. And now we are ready to create the next table, which is the asset allocation, including a relationship between these two tables. So familiar process now, we've done this before. Navigate back to tables, and we're going to create a new table. And this one is called asset allocation. And again, let's have a look at some of the options that we've got available to us here. Firstly, we're going to choose a table image, and this time I'm just going to choose one that's already there. There's a bunch of things in there. So we looked before about how to bring in our own custom icon, but there's one in here that is pretty good that's called analysis result. That's this one here, which has got a little checkbox, so that will do. And then what we want to do is select another option here. So if we're going to go down here, we're going to choose this option called Leverage Quick Create Form if available. A quick create form is where we can, from one record, create another related record out of it. So we did like new asset allocation from the asset. If we do that, that's going to enable something else. So you want to do that one here so that we can do this. And then we also want to make this table an option when creating a new activity. What that does is allows you to track things like emails and appointments and so on. So for this one, which is our asset allocation, there might be some case where we want to track a timeline. Basically enables that timeline for the table. So we might, like on the contact, have emails and things back and forth. We might want to track different things in that allocation process. So selecting that allows you to do that. Now, notice here, options marked with the little 1 can't be turned off if enabled. So this is an irreversible decision. You can come back and add it later if you didn't do it. But once I've done that, that's already done. And that's going to set up that capability of the timeline. I can't undo it. I'll show you sort of what happens and why that is now. So we save that, and all good. That's going to create that table for us. And again, it's creating all of that scaffolding, but it's doing some additional things here because I chose that enable for activities. It's actually also creating relationships for me with all of the out-of-the-box stuff with things like emails, tasks, phone calls, all of those things. So if I go in here to columns, we'll see the same kind of thing that we saw earlier with all of these different things created. But if I go back up a level here and also have a look at relationships, you'll see that it's created a bunch of relationships to related tables, and they're all here under this regarding section where we've got things like activities, teams, chats, appointments, emails, letters, phone calls. So if you select that box, that's what it's doing, which is also why you can't just kind of switch it off again. So very powerful, but think carefully about whether that's something that you really want to use in there. All right, so now what we're going to do is create some columns for this table. So let's go through this process again, and we'll see some different types of columns being added in here. We have got our asset. So the first thing we want to do is when we're looking at this asset allocation, let's just go in and sort of get a handle on what it is we're creating here. And we'll go in and have a look at this phone for Sandra that we created earlier. This is what's on the screen here. We're going to come back and do these pieces later that show you the details, but essentially here we've got the primary name, which is that heading at the top. We've got a lookup to who is the person, the contact, also who was it requested by, and which asset is it, as well as this yes no toggle for the policy, some text here, and some dates and things in there. So we're going to go through all this. Now, I'm teaching you this. I've pre-planned all of this stuff, and I'm teaching you how to do the drag and drop. If you're doing this in real life, there's a bit of work in, and honestly, some good thinking work in designing your data tables and things beforehand. Don't underestimate that. Don't just kind of come in and start dragging and dropping things around. You do want to plan out, what data tables do I have? What information do I want to collect? Have a little diagram of how they relate to each other. This is the execution of that, but you do need to do that thought process in there as well. I've done that for you here. So what we've got now is we want to create the asset lookup. So that's, which asset are we allocating? Data type there is a lookup, and in this case we are looking up to the related table that we just created, which is the asset. So we save that. We're going to create another lookup to the employee and also to the requested by. So let's do those next. So this one is going to be the employee. That is a lookup to the contact table. Now I'm actually creating database relationships here. When I created from a lookup from the asset allocation to the asset, I've created a lookup field, which is an easy way to do it, but I'm actually creating a database relationship, and we'll have a look at what that's done in the end. But I find this kind of an easier way to do it, because I'm like, when I'm on this screen, I need to look up to that other table, and that is creating that many-to-one relationship. So where am I up to? We needed to also create a lookup to the requested by, which is a lookup to the contact table again. So you'll see here I'm actually creating multiple lookups to the same table, because I want to have different contacts linked in different roles in there. I'll just give that one a capital letter and save that. We have got an allocation date. Give it a second. New column. Allocation date is a date and time, format date only, save. Now we're going to create a formula field, a calculation in here. So what happens in the asset allocation is that when we have that allocation date, this return due date, which is locked, is automatically calculating 3 years ahead. So we're anticipating that it's going to be 3 years ahead. Now you can get more sophisticated with this. You could have, if it's a type of, laptop is 3 years, but a phone might be 2 years. So you can actually get very, very sophisticated, but we'll keep it simple here for the concept. So we're going to create a new column here, which is called return due date. And instead of making this one a date, we're actually going to go in and choose a formula column. Now this uses PowerFX. If you have built other things, Canvas apps and other things in Power Platform, you're likely going to be familiar with this. This is an expression language, a bit like an Excel formula that allows you to define what you want that behavior to be. And thankfully, it gives us a little bit of help along the way here. Now, there is a full documentation online for all of the different formulas and things. It's similar to Excel, but not exactly the same. But the formula that we want to use here, and again, this is something that you can just find by searching online, or you sort of learn these things as you go. Think about how you learnt Excel formulas. You didn't wake up one day and just know them all, or maybe you digested a book, depending on how old you are. But generally, you just kind of find these things and as you go. So the one that we want here, the formula is called date add. And even as I start to type it, even if I didn't know I'm doing something related to a date, I can find this date add in here. Now, as I do this, you'll see that it starts to give me some help along the way. So as I open my bracket here, it's giving me a little bit like Excel, date add, what's the date, and how many units. So the date that I'm adding, and it's also prompting me to go, here are the dates that you've got available for you. So what I'm looking at is the allocation date, which actually isn't what I want there. So I'm just going to start typing. There we go. There's my allocation date. And then I have to put in a comma, and then I want it to be 3 years. So I'm going to put in 3 for the number of years, and then what type of, it's years here. So it's actually prompting me time unit years, and I can choose that and close that bracket. Done. You'll get an error if it's wrong. Don't want you to worry too much about PowerFX. There's a whole other kind of learning you can do around that, but just to know that within your model-driven app, you can bring that formula language in here to do these kinds of calculations. And then the format in the end here, it's worked out that this has to be a date and time format. I want it to be just in date only, and I can save that one in there. Okay, next thing we want to do is the outside policy, yes or no. So this is a bit of a different type of column as well. This is a toggle binary thing. So the difference between a choice where we're doing things like, choose the type, where we had phone or laptop and whatever, that's a list of choices where you can have nothing as the default. A yes, no is a binary thing. Yes, no, true, false, those kinds of things. There's no sort of zero option, if you like. It's just the two binary options. So that's what we're doing here. Is it inside the policy or not? And the default has to be yes or no. So let's add that one in here. So this one is called outside policy, question mark, and the type here is a choice yes or no, and it will say, what is your default choice is no, because we're hoping it's not outside the policy most of the time, so that makes some sense. Next up, we've got a reason for what's going on. So that's this one here. And we're going to come back and apply this logic. You see where that was sort of going, yes or no, and that comes in. So we're going to do that later. We'll pop in the reason here. So a new column. And this one is that text area again, because we want that to be multiple lines. And again, in the advanced options, let's give that sort of plenty of space for, for an explanation as to why you are going outside of the policy. We have the approval status. So up here in the form, in the approval here, we have this approval status of approved or rejected. Again, I'm not using a binary one here because I don't want one of those to be the default. I want it to be blank and then to have those two options in there. So this one is called approval status. This is definitely something that I might want to use in other areas of the system. So this is a choice, and I want this one to be definitely a global choice. So we're going to call this one approval status, and my choices are approved and rejected. This is one where we might want a color to go with it. So, mindful, not everyone will be able to access those colors. We've still got the labels on the screen there, but that's something that can add an additional visual indicator within the app. So then we can go in and say, yes, we're going to sync that choice. So we'll go in here and sync this choice with approval status. Default choice, none. We don't want a default choice, so we're going to save that. And then we're also going to put in an allocation check. So this is about the quality check. Is it satisfactory or unsatisfactory? We also want that to be something that we can use more than once. So this is our allocation check. This is a choice, and we want to sync this with a global choice. Again, we're going to go in here. We'll call this one allocation check because we're going to use this in different ways. Satisfactory and unsatisfactory. Save that. Link it back up to the allocation check. No default choice there, save that. And I think we are good. So we've created a lot of stuff. This one's got a lot going on. I want to show you what's going on with the relationships here, because we saw before that we've got a bunch of relationships related to all those activities. But if I go back here into my asset allocation table and have a look at relationships, you'll see that we have got them created in here with different related tables. So here we go. We've got a relationship with the asset table, which is a many-to-one relationship. So this is really core to what we're doing with the data and the Dataverse tables going on in here, is creating these relationships. So we are saying in a many-to-one or a one-to-many relationship, these are the same things, back and forth. So we've got this many-to-one relationship with the asset. So that basically means from the point of view of the asset allocation, you can look up and choose one asset, but the other way around, one asset can have many allocations associated with it, because this asset can be allocated multiple times. It's allocated to someone, that person leaves, we get it back, we allocate it to someone else. So we're going to have multiple allocations for the one asset, one to many, but from the point of view back here, this is the other way around, linking back to one. So that's the concept of the one-to-many and the many-to-one. The other thing that you can do in here is to create those relationships from here. So I've actually created them by doing that lookup in there. But if you wanted to do it another way, if you kind of want to explicitly create the relationship, you can go in and create those relationships. You've also got the option to create a many-to-many in there as well. That's where, you know, you want that, you want to be able to see those sort of lists both ways. So that's something that you can do. So depending on where you are, if I hadn't already created that lookup to asset, I could say I want to create a many-to-one relationship to the asset table in here, and then it would create that. It would give it a lookup column name. It's telling me it already exists because I already created it. So if you create the relationship in this way, it creates a lookup column for you. I find it's easier just conceptually to create the lookup column, and then the relationship part is taken care of. So you'll see of all of those other ones we've got in here, if I look at the related tables, sort A to Z in here, then we've got, you know, I created two different contact lookups, one for employee and one for requested by, and you'll see they have a different sort of relationship name in there so that it's pointing two separate ways to that contact table for me to create those links. Now we need to create a view for the asset allocation. We're not going to create the form just yet because we're going to bring these elements in one of the later modules, a little bit more advanced. So we'll go back into our asset allocation. We're nearly there with the table creation. This is like a core thing, right? We are creating these data tables and creating all the relationships between them. At this stage, we're still just working in Dataverse. The model-driven app part kind of sits on top of this later. Let's go into views here. And so now what we're going to do is go into that active asset allocations view, which is the default one that's been created when we set up the table. And I'm going to bring in all of the other things that I want to have in there. So the first thing, again, I don't really want created on, so we're going to remove that. And we can keep this nice and easy by just kind of clicking and bringing them across in here. So I'm just going to click on employee, asset, allocation date, allocation check, return due date, return actual date. I didn't create return actual date. We'll go back and do that. And then we can put in the column widths in here as well to bring all of those things together. Let's save that. Go back. This is very real, to be honest. When you are creating things, forgetting to add a column along the way is a thing that happens, and also, as you'll see, not terribly hard to fix. If you create a column in the wrong data type and you notice it here, delete it immediately before you start adding it to forms and things. Otherwise, I do have another video in my playlist on how you have to unpick that, which isn't a terrible lot of fun. So we want to put in the return actual date. So we did our calculation. I got very excited about doing the calculation before and forgot to put in the actual date. So the return estimated date, like when we expect it to come back in, is actually done in there as a calculation, but the actual date is something that you just put in at the time. So we'll do that and we'll go back and add it into the view. So let's go back into our asset allocation and the view here, and we do need this column in here because we're going to filter by this one, because what we want for our active asset allocations is the ones that are sort of still in progress, so they've been allocated and not returned yet. So if I put my return actual date in there, then what we want to do is to say, once we've got a return actual date, once someone's actually entered that in there, we want it to drop off this list. So this is where we can use filters really well to go in and say, let's filter by and say that this one does not contain data. So if we scroll all the way down, we get that. So you'll see with the date filter, you've got a lot of before or after this date. But what I want to do is to say that it does not contain data. So we're only going to see things in that active allocations list where that is still blank. As soon as somebody fills something in to say this has been returned, it's not an active asset allocation anymore, it's a completed one, and so it drops off the list. Clever, huh? Let's save that one. Would have been more clever if I'd remembered to add the column in the first place, but there you go. And back to the solution now. One more table, bear with me, we're almost through this part, which is the asset check table. So this is where within here we've got a list of asset checks so that we can go through and put those things in, and we're going to do some pretty cool stuff in here with some ratings and things. I want to give you as much variety as I can in the different types of things that you can create in terms of columns in here. So we go back to our tables. I am going to create again, actually, sorry, back one level up into the solution. No, we can't do that. Let's just go back to all there. If you get stuck anywhere with the navigation, let's just click on all. So now we're back to that top level of our solution. Look how many things we've got in here now, by the way. A whole lot of things. So we've got these tables, the choices, there's my web resource for the icon that I did. So see how it starts to build up. One more table. So we're going to go in here and we're going to create this one called asset check. In this case, we're going to go into the advanced options, and I'm going to bring in another web resource here. So I'm going to choose an image from my desktop, which is a check icon. I've just created one in there. So I'm going to call this one check icon, give it a schema name, which is basically the same, but with no spaces in it. It's in PNG format. Save that. And that's brought across into there. All right, and again, we want to leverage the quick create form so that we can easily create these from other records and save that. We've got a few columns to add in here and a form and a view, and then we are done with this module, and then we're going to start doing some of the more advanced stuff of quick create and quick view forms, which are fun to play with and start to really flesh out all these things. I think all of this is fun to play with though, so hopefully you do too. What have we got now? So we've got our asset check. We need to create a bunch of columns in here. So I'm going to show you some different things we haven't covered before. And by the end of this table, you've got a pretty good sense of all of the different things we can do. So this one is an asset allocation. So again, we're creating a lookup here because we want to go, this check is related to which asset allocation. So that is a lookup to the asset. Sometimes you can type it in, and sometimes it's easier just to scroll through. See, I'm typing a bit too fast there, so let's just slow that down. Asset allocation. Also, while I'm recording it, it does sort of work at a slightly slower speed than I'm used to, so bear with me. Rename the owner. So now what we're going to do is use a column that's already in there for something else. So we've got this owner column in here every time. In this case, I'm going to assume the person creating the record and owning the record of the check is actually the person who's responsible for doing it, the owner. But what we want to do is change the name of this to be checked by. So you can actually rename things that are already there. Use those out of the box pieces as much as you can, rather than creating additional things that you don't need. We're also going to put in a checked date, and this one is going to be a date and time, and let's leave this one as a date and time because we might want a date and time stamp of when that happens. We are going to put in the notes, which is the rich text in here. So if we go in and have a look at where we're headed with this, this has got this rich text piece where we can put in a whole lot of extra things. So let's add a new, sorry, wrong piece, new column, which is notes. And this one is going to be text, rich text format. Save that. Now, I didn't expand the number of characters, so if you've forgotten to do that, you can always go back in and do it. So I'm going to go back in, and here's my notes column and advanced options, maximum character count 4,000 again. And then I want to put in a check type. Is this on allocation or return? So we're going to put in a new column here, which is the check type. We'll make this one just a local choice. So I'm going to go in here and choose choice and a sync with global choice. No, we just want to make this local. So we're going to call this one, it's either being done on allocation or return of those things. No default choice in this case. Then we're going to put in the check result. So here we've got this thing of what type of check is it, and then what is the check result. Now remember, we created satisfactory and unsatisfactory earlier as a global choice. So this is where we've got that benefit of being able to use that again. So I can go in here and click on new column, and we'll call this one check results. So it's the same option set that we had earlier. So I'm going to go choice and choose. Yes, I'm syncing with a global choice, so I don't have to create it this time. I've already got it. And I called that one allocation check. So you see it previewed there as satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So don't have to recreate that. So that's that benefit of creating it as a global choice if you want to be able to use something else somewhere else. And then we have one last piece here, which is the rating, which is a whole number. This is the first time we've used a number. So we can go in here. You've got different types of numbers that you can choose from. So we're going to just leave it as a whole number. You can actually have like decimals and things in there as well, but this is just a 1 to 5. If you go into the advanced options here, you can choose. Now, you know, we don't want anyone putting in a rating of -2 billion, whatever it is. So the minimum value here is 1 and the maximum value here is 5. So that will also kind of control that data entry experience. So you can do that. It's always worth clicking into that advanced options. There's often a lot of other stuff going on in there. That's all our columns that we need to create in there. We are now going to create a form and a view for that table. So let's go back to that table and then go into the forms section. And this time we're going to create a new form. So you'll see it's got these ones called information that are in there. I tend to find it easier to start with a blank one. Sometimes it sort of just puts some random stuff on there. So I'm going to start with a new blank form here. We want to call this one. So this is the asset check main form is what name it gives it. That's fine. I want to set the formatting here to be 2 columns. So again, this piece at the top, select it so that that whole piece, that whole section is created, and the formatting there is 2 columns, same as what we did before. You don't see it straight away. So then what we want to do is in the left-hand column, we're going to go in and uncheck the hide label box. So if I click on this, see there's a hide label, we do that, and then we've got that bit at the top there that has general. I'm going to change that to be summary. Again in caps, so that's there. So that hide label is something that allows you to show or hide what's going on in there. So I'm going to bring in, we've got the name in there. I'm going to bring in what we're doing here. We've got name, asset, allocation, and so on. So, and you'll see that's changed to checked by, that's the owner because we changed the name of it. So I want name, asset, allocation, checked by, and checked date. So we've got the name there. There's my asset allocation, checked date, checked by, checked date, check type as well in there under the asset allocation. So let's bring that in there. And then on the right hand side, on the other column, we're going to have another section here. So in fact, what I want to do is not just make this thing, because this has got the summary. You see how these are 2 different sections. I don't just want 2 columns in the one section. So what I'm going to do is select the whole tab here. So this is a section, just the difference between things. If I click further out in the screen, see how my purple box has gone all the way around? That's the whole tab. So just if I'm on the section and it's 2 columns, it's what we did before, one wide section with 2 columns in it. If I click on the whole tab now, I want to change this formatting to be 2 columns. So now I've got that there. And in fact, I accidentally before changed this to 2 columns. I want to just change that back to be 1 column. So that takes up the full width of itself. And now I've got another new section here. So we want to call this one asset check. So again, I'm going to put this label here, asset check, and that shows up. And then I want to bring my notes across into that section and give this one, there we go, that's starting to expand out. Now that notes with the label on the side there is kind of, I mean, that's fine if you want to do that, but if you don't want to do that, you can hide the label and then that rich text will take all of that up, because it might be obvious that that's the notes, so you can do whatever you like with that. And then what we want to do is add the rating. So let's bring the rating over into here. And we want to give this little 5-star thing, because at the moment that's just a number. You can enter the number. So down the bottom here under components, I can scroll down and I can choose to add a component, and there's a bunch of things in here that we can choose from. Because it's a number, it gives me star rating as an option. The maximum value is 5, it's picked that up. All good, and so that will now become, there we go, star rating. And then I wanted to bring the check result in there as well, so we'll drag and drop. Hooray, I remembered to create all the columns for this one. Save. All right, we're good. So just remember the difference between sections and tabs and where you're clicking on the form, because you've got all these options and things, and you know, being really kind of careful about where you're clicking and what you intend in there. And then one last piece for this module, and then you can take a break, and we're going to come back and have a look at how to do some of the other more advanced pieces. So what we're going to do here is just create that view for the asset check. So let's break the back button again there to get back into the solution. We'll give it a second. How are you going? creating lots of tables in there. So it is a little bit with that form. You do have to sometimes press that button a couple of times to get back to the solution. All right, last piece. Here we go. So back into my asset check table and my views. And active asset check views. And so now what we're going to do is bring in something a little bit more advanced here. Actually, again, don't really care for the created on, but if we have a look at this asset check view in here, so if I go back to the asset allocation in here, you'll see that when we're looking at this view, we're actually seeing some related things. So because the asset check itself is related back to that allocation process, but we also want to bring in some of the things related to the original person too. So let's just go back in here. So we're going to say we're going to bring in the asset allocation. So which allocation process are we working in when we create this check? Then we want to bring in the check type, checked by, the check result, and the checked date. Let's save that, and we'll go back to our solution, and that ends that whole first module. We've created all the tables that we need. We've created most of the views and the forms we need. We do still have one more form to create, which is our asset allocation table, because this has got some more sophisticated stuff going on with it here. So next module, we're going to go ahead and do those things. Let's create some different types of forms now, and this is where we're really going to level up. We've done all the basics of creating our tables and forms and views, but let's do some cleverer things. This one here is called a quick view form. This allows you to have a related record like this. We've got our employees, and it gives you a quick view of the things that are related to that. Same here, we've got the asset and the quick view of some of those attributes. So that's a quick view form. The quick create form is what we see when we are, for instance, on the asset and we want to create a related asset allocation. So this ability to go plus new asset allocation, and it pops up on the side here with this quick create experience. So when we created those tables, we were selecting a box that says leverage for quick create if available. You need to do that in order to create the quick create form. Let's go ahead and do those things. So the first thing we're going to do is that quick create form for the asset allocation, exactly what I just showed you. So within my solution, I've navigated back here to tables. I'm going to go into the asset allocation table. And now when I go into my forms and choose new form, I can choose quick create form. If that is grayed out, it means you didn't, when you created the table, you forgot to check that box. Let me just show you in case you come across this in your real life scenario. If you want to go back and change anything, properties in that asset allocation table, the properties, you've got all of the properties here. You can go down here and deal with that. So you can see that that's checked there. You've got those other things, and as we said earlier, there are certain things you can't undo, but you can go back and sort that out if you need to. But we did the right thing. So new form, quick create form. This is the same experience as what we have used before for creating a form, but you'll notice it's narrow because it just pops up on the right hand side of the screen. You'll also notice there are some other things that we can't do in here. So this is not the complete editing experience, but it's the same concept. So it comes with 3 sections in here. So we're going to go into the first section here, and we're going to bring in name employee. So let's bring, and again, I can just click on those things to bring them in. We've got the name, the employee, the asset, the allocation date, and then I want to hide the label because in this case, I don't really conceptually have different sections that I'm thinking about when I do this. So we're just going to hide that label. And then I don't want these other sections on the form here as well. So rather than deleting them, because you'll see I can't actually delete them, we just say hide label and again, hide label. And that means that we just don't see them on the form. And that's it for a quick create. So you're just bringing in the things that when you want to create it, and you'll see when you work with it, if I create it from the asset, I create the asset allocation, it already brings across that related asset for me, and I just fill in those other things. So again, that's just part of that functionality. I don't have to do anything to make that happen. So we'll go back to the solution, and now what we're going to do is create these, double click again to get back. Now what we're going to do is create this thing that I keep pointing out to you because I love it so much, is these quick view forms. So this is a quick view for the contact, and this is a quick view for the asset. So back to our tables, and we're going to go into the contact table to create that first. And I can say forms. Let me show you another way here. You can also do it from here. So you can go new form. So same thing. You start to sort of see different ways of getting to things. This one is a quick view form. I do find the name of this hard to remember because it's a form, not a view. But anyway, so now we've got this here. Again, same kind of experience, but with some limited options. So what we want to do here, give it a name first. So we're going to call this one the employee quick view form. And then we want to drag the columns into that section. So we've got the full name. Now this is with the contact here. We've got all of these different things that have come in here. You can drag in first name and last name, but you'll see that, it's actually going to show that way anyway. So full name just kind of shortcuts to bring that in. This is another one of those composite fields like we saw with address before. If there's nothing in middle name, it will just be hidden, but you can equally bring in first name, last name if you prefer to do that. So we've got the full name, and we want the job title. Much easier to search when there's a lot of columns going on, and the department. And you'll see as I bring these in, they're all coming in as read-only, even though, like, normally if you wanted to make something read-only on a form, incidentally, you can do that here, but these are all read-only. By definition, the quick view form is for viewing. You're not editing it, so they all come across as that. Now, again, I don't want new section at the top, so we highlight that whole section. I'm just going to hide that label in there, and we're going to bring the heading in the section on the main form. Otherwise, I could have a heading in there, which is the piece that I am not doing, so save. And then one more here, which is to create that same thing for the asset table. So we'll just give that a second to come back up to the asset table. And we're going to do the same thing here, which is a new quick view form. So we'll do it the way I was doing before. New quick view form. See how quick create is grayed out because I didn't enable that for this table. And this one, again, we're just going to bring those things across. So we want in here the asset ID, the asset name, the asset type, acquisition date, purchase value, serial number. That'll do. And grab that, hide the label again, and save. So nice and easy. Once you know how to create forms, creating quick view forms and creating quick create forms, exactly the same thing. You just can't do as many things with different sections and columns and stuff on the screen, so it's a little bit limited. most important thing is just that you know that those are things that you can do and how to use them, because it really adds additional life and elements to your app that make that user experience so much better. Now what we can do is go ahead and create this form and bring all these things together. So we're going to go back into the solution and create that asset allocation form. So back to the tables. And I'm working in my asset allocation table. And I'm going to create a new form, main form. New form, main form. Let's try again. If you don't click on it right the first time, it doesn't work. All right, so this is going to come up. Asset allocation main form is fine as a name. First thing I want to do is drag the owner here up into the header so that we can bring it in there. And then I'm going to get this whole tab here, so this whole general tab, so click there, and we're going to make the layout 2 columns so that we've got, you see how there's the divide down the middle there, so we've got those 2 columns on the form there. We're going to select this section and change the label. So again, that's not the section, that's the data column. Click a bit outside it, change the label here in caps to summary and make sure that we can see it. And I'm going to bring in the employee. So we've got the name of the thing, we've got the employee, we have got the requested by. Didn't mean to bring that one in. Employee, so yeah, just delete if you bring in something you didn't mean to do. Name, employee, requested by, asset, outside policy, and reason. Now you'll see, we're going to do the logic in a minute of this yes or no, but you do need to, if you want it to be showing and hiding on the form, you do need to put it there in the first place. And then we're going to put a business rule in place to get the show hide thing to work. I want that one to take up maybe a couple of rows because we really want people to be generous with their reason. We also want to use a toggle here. So like we did earlier with the 5 stars for the rating, if I go onto this and click components, so any of these things, if you click on it, you can see different components that are available. So with the yes, no column, we've got that toggle component available. And this also allows you to make a distinction because you can view your model-driven app on a mobile or tablet device that's fully responsive. So you might want different behavior there. I'm going to leave it to be the toggle on all of those things. I'm going to add another section now. So we've got this section on the form and I want to add another section below it. So again, choosing the thing where you want to put it below is usually good. You can add a component from the top here as well. So that will, that will switch you back to that menu. I want to add a 1-column section. So there it is there. We are going to give that the name dates and checks, and the label is already unhidden when it's a new one, so that's okay. And from there, I am going to bring in, so we click back into the table columns, just the distinction between columns, formatting columns and table columns, the columns in the columns. We're going to bring in allocation date, so I can drag and drop that one in there. If you click on it, it'll go wherever you're selected. So just make sure you select it in the right spot. Now that I'm there, I can just kind of add some others. Allocation date, allocation check, return due date, return actual date, and we're good. All right, let's go over to this other column on the side here, and we are going to change this label to be employee details. And this one is where we're going to bring in that quick create form. So if I go back to my, not quick create form, quick view form. So I'm going to go over here and have a look under the menu here for some of these other elements. So far we've just been working with these layouts of columns, and we're going to come to tabs when we look at subgrids. Subgrids are coming up in the next little while, but we've got all these other things that we can bring in, and this is actually going to be a display component. So there are various other things you can play with. Honestly, there's so much more than we can get to even in a complete course like this. So I'm going to bring in a quick view. So when I choose that, it's going to say, where do we want to choose this from? And it allows me to choose from any of the lookups here. Now there's more here than you might think. asset employee we created, but all of these other things, remember in the scaffolding, created by, created on, those are all lookups to users in the system, including the owner and so on. So in this case, this is a lookup to the employee. And yep, there we go. And then we want to choose which one we want. So that is the employee quick view form. So there are some out of the box ones with contact. When you're using one of those out of the box tables like contact, you'll find there's a lot more going on in there than for the tables you've created yourself. Done, and let's watch it appear. Oh no, see, I put it in the wrong place. I wasn't clicked in the right place. No drama, grab it, drag it into the correct spot. All right, now what we want to do, let's click on that and add another new component here, which is another section below that. So again, to put it in the right place where I was below, you can drag the sections around the forms if you need to as well. And this one is going to be asset details. All right, let's see if I can get in the right place this time. Click on it first. Then I'm going to add a quick view. It's the same thing. The lookup this time is the asset, and I've got my asset quick view form. You'll see there's only one there because that's the one that I've done myself. And boom, how good is that, right? And that's all in there. Let's save that. And we are good to go. So we can go back to our solution, and then in the next module, we're going to do that logic, which is around showing and hiding pieces on the form. Another level up here, we're going to have a look at business rules. So you can use business rules in your model-driven app to do things like we're about to do here, show or hide one of those columns on the form based on something else that's going on. You can also make it mandatory or not. So we're going to do both of those things. There's a few other little tricks with business rules, but essentially we're setting a business rule here that is going to change what we see on the form and also to make that mandatory if the rule is true. So back in my solution and my table, we've got business rules here. You can actually get to it from inside the form designer as well. On the very left-hand navigation menu, look for this little icon there. Don't have any business rules yet. We're going to say add new business rule. Now, you might need to get a cup of tea or something here. This is taking us back into an older part of the user interface. I'm actually going to let this go in real time here so that you can see that if this is a bit slow for you to load, it's not just you. Sometimes if this spins forever and you get tired of waiting for it, you want to just kind of quit out of it. So I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to do this in the new user interface, but at the time of recording here, which is November 22, we still are switching back to the old user interface for this, and it is a little bit slow. So this is essentially going to be a series of sort of branching conditional logic. If this is true, then do this. If this is false, then do that, and so on. And we can start to build out those things. All right, come on, business rule designer. Let's get cracking here. I did promise I would do this in real time, and I'm starting to regret it that I'm not using the magic of video editing here to speed things along. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Don't forget to give this a like if you're getting value out of it. Share it with people. It is a very long kind of course, but I wanted to give you the complete package all in one go. All right, this is about the point where I start to get a bit impatient with it. I'm just going to kind of click on that and refresh, and sometimes that can speed up the process a bit. You'll notice, there we go, that's opened it up in a new tab. So when we're done with this, we can close down that tab. So first thing we do is have a condition here. Actually, sorry, first thing we do is want to give it a name. It's not really obvious, but right at the top here, see there's a little drop down arrow, because leaving something called new business rule is really not helpful at all. So what we want to do here is change this to be, this is a rule for when something is outside the policy. So we're going to call this the outside policy business rule. And then we can close that back up again. Now you'll see it doesn't change straight away. When we get to the end to save, it'll pick up that name. So don't panic at this point. So we're going to go into the condition here. So condition, is this true? You can see we've got a true path with the tick or a cross path with the false there. So new condition, and if it's true, so first thing we're going to do is give this condition a name. You are going to make sure you name everything along the way, because it's going to make it a whole lot easier to do all of the things as you go along. So this one is going to be outside policy. And what we're looking for is on the asset allocation entity or table. So entity is the old word for table. So we're still kind of going back into some old language here. The entity and field is the old word for column. So there it is there. Outside policy equals yes. So if it is outside the policy, we want them to provide a reason, and they must provide a reason. So we want that to be visible and mandatory. Apply. When we get to business process flows, very similar kind of design, and we have to click apply each time and make sure it's there. We go to our component, and these are the things we can do. So you can actually put in sort of a recommendation. You can show an error message, set the default value, lock or unlock things. I tend to use the set business required and set visibility more than these other things. So these are the two we're going to do here. So if it is outside the policy, first thing we want to do is set the visibility so that you can see it. So we're going to say make reason visible. And again, on that table, we are looking for reason, and visibility is yes. Apply. Right, want to do one more thing, which is to make it mandatory, because you're not getting away with not providing a reason. Let's drag that across here. We are going to say set reason to required. And in this business required, reason, oops, not requested by, reason is business required. Apply. Good. You always want to do the no path, because you want to allow for the fact that people might toggle the switch on and off, and you need it to work. If you don't sort of mirror it back the other way, you can get into some logic problems if somebody behaves in a way that users do with your app. So it's just always good to kind of set it so that whichever way it goes, it's going to be fine. So we just want to do the opposite here for the, if the outside policy is not yes. In other words, if it's on the no toggle, we're going to go and again set visibility. So when it's on no, we want to say make reason not visible. We go in and find reason and visible no, apply. And then back to our components again, set business required. And this is really important. Let me do it and I'll explain why. Set reason to not required. If you miss this step, not business required, apply, think about the logic. If someone says switch it on, it's visible and required. If it's hidden, but they switch it on, switch it off again, what you end up with is a really terrible user experience where the field is required and they can't see it and can't get to it. So just make sure if you're doing something that's conditionally required that you have the opposite so that it's not required as well. And then once we are done, we can save. And so once you save, you'll see that it picks up that name that I gave it earlier. And then we have to do a validation. And actually, I don't know if you saw it, but it came up with a validation successful. So there is a validate button, but the save is doing the validate at the same time. So you don't actually need to do that. But then the last step here is we have to activate it. And again, cup of tea time. Sometimes this can take a couple of minutes. So you do have to activate this. You also then, if you want to edit it later, if you come back in to edit your business rule, you will have to deactivate it in order to edit it and then save and reactivate it. The other thing, while it's ticking away that I didn't point out there, is that you've got this scope up here. So this is actually applying to this table in any circumstance. So if I create multiple forms or other experiences for the user, this will always apply. Otherwise, you can choose that scope to be just narrowed down to one particular form if you want to do that. All right. This module takes a bit longer in real time than it does, the actual kind of dragging and dropping of all of the things there are easier than waiting for this to happen. Again, I'm going to do this in real time because I want you to see the real experience so that you know it's not just you. That thing of sometimes having to refresh the window or sometimes it gets a little bit stuck. You will know it's done even if this message doesn't sort of appear. You'll know it's done because this status will change from activate to deactivate. So I'm just going to give it another 10 seconds or so. We'll see what comes up. You can also create sort of multiple branches here. So I've sort of got one condition and those things happening, but you can sort of have another nested condition in your business logic. So whatever you want to be doing there, if you want to go, if that was not true, maybe then you wanted to show something else. So I've just got a very simple kind of on-off situation, but you can get more complex with the business logic than that. All right, again, tired of waiting. So let's give this a refresh and see if I can speed it along a little bit. Now activate again. Sometimes you'll get better luck the second time around. I'm not going to lie to you. Oh, there we go. So this is what you should see. For some reason, I find that doing the refresh just sort of pushes it through. So please don't sit and wait for longer than I just did. Like I've had people who'll sit for half an hour waiting for it. Don't do that. Give it a minute or so. Be reasonable, refresh, and then you can get that better experience. Once it says deactivate here, don't click that, then it's worked. Now this was a whole new tab that had opened in the browser, so you just close that tab down, go back into your solution and you'll get this creating a new business rule and you say done, and then you'll see it appear there. That's the end of our business rules section. Now we're going to go ahead and create subgrids and put those as tabs on the form. Subgrids are a really, really important feature in model-driven apps. As I was clicking around before, this is where in that one-to-many relationship or a many-to-many relationship, you get visibility from wherever you are of the related tables and what's going on. So within my asset allocation here, I've got the list of related asset checks. This is a subgrid. If I go back to my employee, so we'll go back over here. Let me just show you the search actually while I'm at it. If I go in and kind of search for Sandra, we can go straight to her record so you don't have to navigate around all the time. I have a subgrid of asset allocations. So this is something that I would encourage you to use. It certainly makes that app experience, much better. If you don't do that, if you've got a one-to-many relationship, like one employee can have many asset allocations, you will always find it in the related menu. So if you go in here, you will see all of the things that are related. So we've got this related asset allocations in here, but this is giving us this view of, we've got a phone and it's not very useful, right? Compared to having a nice tab with it there and those things just sitting there with the columns set up, and also this experience of this nice quick create form from there. So I'd really encourage you to do this. So I'm going to go back here into my solution and let's do this. So the first thing we're going to do is to create that asset checks subgrid that goes on asset allocation. So what we're doing when we create this is actually creating a view to use in the subgrid. So you can just use the standard active view, but think about whether or not you've got sort of repetition of those things. You don't want to necessarily, if I'm looking at asset allocations and I'm using the standard asset allocations view, the standard asset allocations view has the name of the employee in it. So you don't necessarily, when you're looking at the employee, need to see the employee's name over and over again. So you can just grab that view and put it in, and we will do a couple of examples of that. But it's good to think through. Again, all these little things make a difference to that great user experience of your app. And it does take time, but you want happy users and a good app, then it's worth it, I think. So I'm going to go back into my asset allocation form, and first thing I'm going to do is just use the standard one. So for asset allocation, to see the list of checks, that standard list, that standard view for checks is fine. I'm not sort of doing too much repetition in there, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go back into my form and edit that form and add that subgrid. So there's my asset allocation main form. And what I'm doing here is adding it in. If I go back in and show you what it looks like here, I'm adding it in. This is called a tab. So you can, I'll show you a little bit later, we can actually just add it as another section on the form, but in this case I want to add it as a separate tab. So the decision about that design is how much is on the form. I tend to try to not have too much vertical scrolling. If you're asking people to scroll down and down and down, that's not such a good user experience. I think having less on the screen and more in tabs is easier for the navigation, but you've got to kind of use common sense and play around with it a bit and see what works for you. So let's go into the components, and what I'm going to do here is add a one column tab and watch it pop up here between general and related as very helpfully named new tab. Click on that tab and let's give it a name here. We're going to call this one asset checks. And then we've got a section in here, and I'm going to change the label of that section. Again, I like caps for the section asset checks. And now I'm going to bring in my subgrid. So this is my element on the side here. So again, click in the place where you want it to go. Go over into my grid, and I'm bringing in a subgrid. Editable grid incidentally allows you to kind of inline edit things. So that's another option if you wanted to do that. I'm going to just choose a regular subgrid here. And the first thing we want to do is to say, just show me the related records. I don't want to see, I don't know why you would, you can bring in a subgrid that shows you everything in that list, but generally the way that I'm using it here, show me the asset checks related to this allocation, just show me those things. So now I can go through and we've got all of the related tables. Remember, for asset allocation, we did allow for being able to bring activities in, which I haven't actually used here in the end, but that's why there's so many in there. I am looking for my asset checks, and the brackets is the name of the lookup. So that's what's going on there. That'll be a bit more obvious when we see one that has more than once. And then which view do I want to use? I've really only got that one view. So we click done and boom, there it is. Now it very helpfully puts this label new SG control. You can choose where you want your label. I'm putting it at the top of the section, which is here, which is a bit more of a prominent label, but you can use that label in there as well. So again, depending on your formatting, you've got choices, but please don't leave it with new SG control, hide it or rename it. So that's good. And we're going to save that one. And so now what we're going to do is a similar process, which is to create the asset allocations for an employee, but we're going to create a view specifically for the subgrid. So we don't have that situation I was just describing where we see the person's name repeated over and over again in that list. So let's go back. And I want this time to go into the contact table. Actually, sorry, no, before I go into the contact table, I want to go into the asset allocation table. So again, I'm in this asset allocation table, but I want a view specifically for, let me show you where I'm headed with this, it's a bit easier. So I'm going to go back into my employees, and here's Sandra. So I want to see the asset allocations related to that employee, but you'll see I don't have Sandra Callett written down there the same way that if I just used this view, I would have that. So I go back into my asset allocation table, and I'm going to create a view, and we will take the active asset allocations table because I just want to modify it. So I could create a new, view. I could create a new view here, but it's actually a little bit easier to just go save as. So I'm going to call this one asset allocations for an, oops, we don't need caps here, for an employee. Now you can, I haven't been doing this much along the way, but it's actually good practice to have descriptions of things. So this is view to be used as a subgrid on employee. So I'm sort of documenting my intention with this so that we're clear on why, that one is in there. So now I want to get rid of that employee column in there, because we'll give it a second to refresh and make sure I'm not just editing my original view and getting rid of a column that I wanted in there. Give it a second. There we go. So name, so employee, remove. What else do I want in there? Asset, allocation date. Probably don't need the check. We can remove that, just sort of simplify it down a bit. Return due date, return actual date. That seems fine. Save. So specific view for a subgrid is something that you should consider doing. You don't have to do it all the time, but it's a good thing to consider doing. Now I'm going to go back to my contact table and put that in as a tab on the contact form. So once that comes up, I'm going to navigate back to tables, contact, forms. So here's my main form that I want to edit. So you see there I've got a main form and a quick view form because we built that out. And I'm going to add a one column tab. So same thing that I just did earlier. Nothing like repetition to reinforce things. I'm going to add a component, one column tab. So again, that's going to pop up there. If I want to put it in a different spot, I can drag it. Oops, see the red mark came up. I want to put it, there we go. And this one is going to be called asset allocations. Again, I'll show you what it looks like to use we'll hide the label there, and I'll use the label. In fact, don't hide the label because it hides, that's a way to hide a section, by the way. Let's not do that just yet. Let's go into the grid and the subgrid, show related records. And now we want the asset allocations for an employee. Now notice here there's two choices: asset allocations employee and asset allocations requested by, because the asset allocations has two lookups to the contact. Remember, we've got one of the person who requested it. So we might want to bring them both in where we can see for a person which ones did they request and which ones have they been allocated. So just be careful that you're choosing the right one if you've done something like that where you're looking up to two different things. In this case, I'm interested not in what's been requested, I'm interested in what assets have been allocated to this employee. So we've got that, and now I can choose the asset allocations for an employee. You'll see in my naming convention there's some good sense in that. Let's get rid of the new SG control and call this asset allocations for this employee or something like that. And then I'm going to hide in the section, I'm going to hide that label. You don't necessarily want two layers of names, but just to sort of show you an alternative there of where you can choose to put it. Brings it a bit closer down to the subgrid, and it's a different sort of font. So personal preference, design choices about what you think is going to work best for you. One more thing we're going to do with subgrids is we're going to add the asset allocation subgrid to the asset, because I want to see for the asset what is the history. And we'll go back here. I'll just show you where I'm going with this one. So in the assets, we had a list of the related allocations. So you'll see I've got it here. So this is a bit of a different one where I haven't put it in a tab. I just wanted to show you that you could do something different, because you can actually have that on the main form. Given how much space is on this form, that felt like a sort of a reasonable choice there. So this time I've already got a view that I'm going to use. I'm just going to use the standard asset allocations view. So I'm going to go back to my tables and go into the asset. So I reckon I've used the word asset a lot of times in this video. Never mind. All right, so asset forms, and we are going to go into the asset main form. And this time, instead of creating a tab, I'm actually just going to create another section along the bottom. So we've got our main section at the top here, and I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to add a one column section. So that will take up the full width of the screen, and it's all just one. I don't want it divided into columns. I want it across there. We are going to give this one the label of allocations and bring in grid, subgrid. Can you do it ahead of me? Related records, asset allocations for that asset. There's only one choice there. That's nice and simple. Active asset allocations will be fine there. Now this one is actually going to bring in the name of the asset. If I was being more particular about it, I could do it a different way. Let's get rid of that SG control thing in there. Now you'll see this is just showing name and created on, even though we've done the work of doing something else. Part of the thing here is that we haven't published all the changes, so don't worry too much about that. Once it's all published and pushed through, you're going to see the right columns and things in there. So just, yeah, don't worry too much about that. One final thing I want to show you here while we're looking at sort of subgrids and special views and things is that you can create a lookup view. So within the asset allocation here, let's say I was creating a new asset allocation from scratch this way instead of from the asset. I can go in here and say, look for asset. If I just click on there, that's the list of the ID numbers, which is not terribly useful. But if I click on this lookup, I'm getting the lookup view, which is actually giving me also the name. And if I expand it out a bit, a serial number. So you can have up to 3 things sitting in this lookup view. And if you choose to do that, that can be a useful thing. So in my asset table, then we're going to go into the views again, because this is a special type of view. So we've had a look already at lots of special types of forms. Within the special types of views, there are a bunch of them here. So we've got the active assets view. There's an advanced find view, which helps determine, what's going on with the search and so on. But here we go. Here's the lookup view. Incidentally, the associated view is what you see in the related menu. So all of these things allow you to kind of edit them. So standardly out of the box, it gives you the name, created on. I still really think created on is almost always not useful. So what I wanted here is the asset name, so I can bring that in. So I've got the ID, which is my primary name field, the asset name, which is in there, and then I chose the serial number as well to go in there. So I can just do that. Nice, simple little thing to do, and that's the lookup view, so that when someone's using that lookup experience, that just gives them a much easier way to see what's going on with all of those things. Next up, we're going to create that guided business process flow that goes across this asset allocation record. Let's create the business process flow. This is this piece that goes across the top. Let's go back in and have a look at a completed one here. Request approval asset check. Remember that approval appears and disappears depending on whether or not it's outside the policy. So this is called a business process flow. We're going to create that. From within the solution here, we're going to go back over to this all section here and create a new automation process, business process flow. Let's leave that on the screen for a second. New automation process, business process flow. Give it a display name. So this is going to be called the asset allocation process. Gives it a name. And which table is it going to work on? It's working on the asset allocation table, and click create. Now again, new tab, old user interface. Be patient, calm, take a breath, have a break. It can take a couple of minutes to load up, and again, letting this go in real time so that you can see the reality of it. The concept of a business process flow is that you are guiding the user through a series of stages and steps from the start to the end of a process. So our use case here is that it's an asset allocation process. Somebody makes a request. Does it need to be authorized, approved or not? And we've got that conditional logic going on in there, right through to allocating it, checking it, and returning it in the end. So you can see there's a linear process there with some conditional branching. I have had people ask me like, well, what's the point of the business process flow? And honestly, if you can't see the point of the business process flow, maybe you don't have the right use case for it. It really should be something where you are trying to provide that guidance of that you are through stages you might want to report on or get visibility on where things are up to in certain stages, or steps that you want people to follow and make sure that certain things are checked off in the process. Onboarding process is a classic example of this as well. If your use case doesn't fit this, then maybe you don't need a business process flow. But in this case, there's a logical sequence of steps we want people to follow. And look, I talked for longer than that it took to load up, so we're winning. Asset allocation process, the name is at the top here. We have a new stage. So what we're doing here is very similar to what we did with the designer for the business rules. We're going to click on that first stage here, change the display name. So this first stage is going to be a request display name, and you must click apply. Just keep remembering to click apply at the end of each of these things. I can open that out and we will get the details in here. And so the data step is basically which columns, and again, old language here, which columns, fields. It's easier to choose the field or column, and then it will give that step a name. So what I want to happen here is to bring in the requested by. So we're going to go down and choose that and see how it names it. Click apply, and then it's there. You can add sort of multiple steps under each of these stages. So let's add another one in here. So we can go back into components, drag another step underneath there or above it if you wanted to do that. So this one is going to be the asset. So at that first request stage, we're bringing in who requested it, what the asset is, apply. And then we're also going to have, is it outside the policy or not? And this is important because we're going to have conditional logic on the approval coming up based on whether it's outside the policy. If you want to use that conditional logic, you must have the thing it's conditional on in the step prior to where it is. So we're going to bring that in, and we are going to choose outside policy and apply that. Now we don't put the conditional branch in just yet. I'm going to build out the process first without the condition and then show you how to add the condition, because you won't always want a condition. So let's repeat this for 3 more stages. We'll go back into the component. This time we're dragging a stage across there. The second stage here is going to be called asset check. we have a data step in here, which is the allocation check, apply. Next one, bring another stage in here. This one is going to be the allocate stage, and apply. I so often forget to click apply, which is I'm going to kind of remind you over and over again. We want the allocation date and the return due date in here. So let's choose the allocation date, apply. And then components, bring another data step in here, and return due date, apply. And one more stage in here, which is the return stage. Data step in there. That's going to be the actual return date. Return actual date, apply. And another data step, which is the, actually no, we don't need another one in there. So if we've made that mistake, we can just delete that step. Okay. Each stage must have at least one step under it. If you try to save it, it won't accept it if you haven't done that. So let's save that. It will do a validation on save and make sure that's okay and sort of throw up any errors, but it's all good, ready to activate. But we're not quite ready to activate it yet because we're going to add this conditional branching. So what we're going to do is between the request and asset check stages is bring a condition in. So let's grab this one here and drag it to be between those two things. And the display name here is going to be approval. This is very similar to that logic we had before. So what are we looking for? Which column or field are we looking for? Outside policy. Now remember, even though it's not just limiting the options, it has to be in the previous stage. If it's not, you'll get an error. If it's outside the policy, then we want to say, so we're saying if it's yes, outside the policy, let's click apply. Then what we want to do is save at this point. Now this is, it's a bit tricky. So we're bringing the condition in, but we need it to branch. We need to add another step in here. And the way to get it to do that is to save it. So once you've brought that in, see how now it's automatically added that in there. So it's popped in a new stage on the yes path, and on the no path, it's going to take us straight back. So our original process is still true if it's not outside the policy. If it is outside the policy, we've now got this new stage here. So we're going to click on this one, and this one is our approval stage. Apply. And then the details here, we're going to bring a data step in here, which is that approval status, and bring that in. Okay, we're all good. Let's save that. The trick there with that condition is you drag it in and save it, and then it sort of automatically puts the pieces in. I find that sort of if you're not doing it all the time, it's an easy thing to kind of forget. Activate the process. And again, don't wait forever for this to activate. This should take 30 seconds to a minute. Again, I'm going to let this go in real time so that you can see what happens. If this gets stuck and takes more than that, then we refresh the browser and we're good. Should be all right. Sometimes it's activated and the message gets stuck. Again, this is a fairly common thing that you'll have to wait. You'll know it's worked because activate will change to deactivate once it's worked. I'll usually give it sort of a couple of goes of the browser prompting me to go, are you really sure you want to wait for this long? Yes. All right, once that's happened twice, then I tend to refresh and just see if it's actually worked or if the things got stuck. So let's give that a second. And again, this is in a new tab. So once it's done, we're going to close down the tab, but we don't want to do that yet. So that's still, oh there, see I've refreshed it and it's switched to deactivate. So what happens is often it's worked, but that message gets stuck on the screen. So just try that. Deactivate is showing the process is active and you can be happy and not have to do anything again. Currently creating a new process that's done. So close that browser tab back to the original thing. And now I will have there we go, pops up there. There's my business process flow that's popped up, and you can see the status is on because it's active. So we are all good. We do have another step that we're going to do later to bring it inside the app. But before we do that, what we're going to do is create an automated flow so that you can actually trigger an approval and see that working. Now, to create the automated approval flow, we're actually going to use Power Automate, which is sort of a sideways product to building model-driven apps. But I really want you to get the sense of the sort of full suite of what we can do here. So where we're working on Dataverse and building this with the Power Platform tools, you're not just building a database application in isolation. You can do all of this business, logic and flows and automations and things as well. So the approvals thing is using something that's built into the platform, which I think is really cool. I'm going to show you in a later chapter after we've finished building our app here, some other business process automation you can use with Flow with your model-driven app, because I think that really brings it all together. So within our solution, again, we're going to go in here and choose New Automation, Cloudflow Instant. So Cloudflow is going into Power Automate to create a workflow. There are different types of things we can do. Scheduled will allow it to just run periodically. You might want something that just runs overnight, every night. Automated will be based off something that happens based on a data point being changed, and we will build one of those a little bit later. But instant is what we want here, because this is something that's going to be done by a little icon. It's like pressing a button. We're going to, in that business process flow, remember we click a button that says request approval. So this flow name is going to be called outside policy approval. And we want this to be triggered on when a flow step is run from a business process flow, because we're going to put that back into that business process flow. So let's click create there. And this is actually now opening Power Automate inside the Power Apps building experience. So the first thing it's done there is authenticated me as the user for using this. In a real world example, you would have a service user logged in to create this kind of thing, because you don't want it running on an individual person. So that's something that you can do. So if there's an input, if you wanted the person, when they click on request approval, to then have to type something, we can do that, but we've taken care of that already with the reason inside the form, so we don't need to do another thing here. When a flow step is run from a business process flow, we're not going to take any other input here. We're just going to go in and add a step, and we're looking for, now this is Power Automate goes on a trigger and an action. So the trigger is I press the button in my business process flow. The action is we're going to use the approvals action. Now there are like 600 odd connectors. This is where you can push data out to other systems. You can do all sorts of things. So lots of possibilities here. You don't just have to be working within your model-driven app. Data or things that happen in your model-driven app can be pushing out, triggering off. You can use this to create notifications, all sorts of things. So what I'm going to do here is use something called approval. So this is a built-in capability that's in the platform, and we're going to say start and wait for an approval, and it's creating that connection to the approvals connection. You can have different types of approvals here. You can say, everyone has to approve, or the first person approves, or you can have custom responses, which is more than just, because you get approve reject as the standard thing, but if you want approve pending, ask the managing director, or whatever you want it to be, you can use those custom responses as well. I'm just going to go in here and choose first to respond. So the title for the approval here is going to be asset allocation outside the policy. So this is something that helps, when the approval comes through, and let's just have a look at that, because we had that one that came through earlier with Dan. You want the thing to have a sensible name. You'll see that we've got like the request title and the status and the created when it comes up. So see, this is the title, asset allocation outside policy. And when you go into it, it's bringing in, this was the piece that came from the reason. So you just sort of, when you understand where those bits go as we're building this, there's the title. Who is it assigned to? Now you can use some clever rules. You can bring in a connector here for Office 365 and say it's the manager, or we could pick up the person who was the manager. I'm just going to keep it simple at this point and say, do you know what, Dan is the person who's in charge of all of the approvals for this. So it's just static value, so you can do whatever you like in there. The details is what comes in that that piece on there. Now I do need to do something else in here. which is to get the table related to it. So what I want to do is to get the reason, and if I start trying to type that in here to say find the reason, you'll see it doesn't come up. So there's another piece I need to do here. When the flow step is run from the business process flow, the business process flow is related to that table, but it's not that table. The reason is on the related table. So to get that in there, I need to add another stage in here. So I'm going to add another action in here, and I need to get from Dataverse the table related to that business process flow. So I'm going to get a row. I'm looking for the asset allocation table. Now this is all stuff that honestly, there's a lot of just experience in learning all of these things. It's a little bit like when we were talking about Power FX before, of skills of kind of knowing how to navigate flow. I've learned a lot of this from watching other people's YouTube videos and reading questions online and things. So approval flows is something that's fairly common. You can basically just replicate this, but then as you start to expand your knowledge, you're sort of building as you go. Which is the row ID? And again, this is something you just sort of have to know here. It is the table that goes with the business process flow stage. So if I go in here, I'm looking for a table. So it is the BPF flow stage table row ID. There just isn't really a better way to explain that than to say that's the one you want. There's a lot of other stuff going on in here, but essentially you have the asset allocation table, you have a business process flow that's related to that. When we press a button from that, we're saying find the particular row or record from that one where it was pressed and pass that back into here so that it knows which particular one it's coming from. So now we're good. Start and wait for an approval. The other thing you want to do here is to name your steps in your flow a bit more sensibly. When a flow step is run, that part's okay. Get a row by ID. Let's rename this to say get the asset allocation, so we know what that's doing. That's also helpful because when we go down here and say, let's pick up the details, now, do you see these are the things from the asset allocation, and you can see that's coming from the flow step called get the asset allocation, is bringing in all of those columns that were part of that asset allocation table. And I want the reason. Now I've got it. Good, okay. We can put in a link to the item to approve. We can bring in some more advanced options in here, so things like enabling notifications and so on, but I don't want to do any of that. Let's just save that for now. And you'll see there's an error on the flow checker here. This one is telling you that Power Automate Approvals has not been installed. So what happens is the first time you use an approval connector, it needs to install a solution in that set of solutions that we had. You kind of can't do it in advance, and you don't actually have to do anything, but it's giving you this warning. So what happens is you have to run it for the first time. When you run it for the first time, that will trigger it to automatically install the solution, and that can take 10, 15 minutes or so, and then it will work. So just be aware, the first time you do this in an environment, you have to wait for that to happen. You don't have to do anything. You just need to be aware that it's going to be slow the first time until it installs those pieces, and then after that you're good. You can create all the approval flows you like and it will all be fine. So that's what that error is. Notice there's a difference between an error and a warning. A warning isn't stopping you going ahead. An error means there's actually something really quite wrong. So we are going to now update inside that business process flow. We want to set the status to be approved or rejected. So we need to add a new step in here, and we're going to add a condition branching based on yes or no, and then we want the value to be, so we've got access now to all of the things that come out of the approval. What we want, if we type in response, the piece that comes out of the approval is the one here that is called responses approver response. That's the response from the approver. Again, it's just one of those things. This brings in a apply to each because it can happen multiple times, and it's going to make sure that each time that comes in, because if the approval is going through more than one person, it allows that to come through. We're not going to sort of need that too much here, but it groups it together in that way, and it's not causing any harm. If that is equal to, and so what we want this to be here is approved. That's the response that actually comes back. So again, these are just things to learn. As you learn each connector, you just sort of learn the particular pieces that go with each connector. If it's approved, we want to add an action in here, which is to update that table that we had earlier with approved. So we're going to go, again, Microsoft Dataverse is the table, the database underneath. We are going to update a row, so we can go in here. Now what we've got is we're going to update a row. So we're going to call this one, we'll rename it. We're going to say update to approved. And we are updating the asset, I should have typed it in. We're updating asset allocation. Which one is it? It's the one that we found up the top. So remember, up here we got the get asset allocation. So if we just go into here and start typing in this dynamic content here, it's the asset allocation, and we're looking for that unique ID. So we're updating that particular record. And the thing we want to update here is just one single thing we want to update, which is the approval status. We want to change that to be approved. So now we want to do the same on the no path, and we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves here. We can go in here, copy to clipboard, go over to the other side here to add an action, go to my clipboard, choose it. Now we need to rename it a bit here, so we can go in here and rename, obviously update to rejected, and then open it out. We've got all those other bits already done for us, and go down to approval status is rejected. Okay, save. Now that warning is still in place. So once we trigger that once, just remember, you'll see the solution deployed and so on. So yes, that's okay. We don't need to do anything with that. Once it's all sorted out, we can click on this back arrow here, and that goes back to the solution. And then what you'll see is that one is there in the cloud flow. So we've now got a cloud flow in our solution starting to flesh out. We've got lots of things going on in there. So last thing we need to do now is to go back into the business process flow and bring it in so that we've got a button to press, and we're good. So that is now sitting in processes back in the solution. So we click on that. We go back into that process. Again, it's going to open the tab and hopefully not take too long to load. And we're going to bring what's called a flow step in there. So here it is here on this approval step. So we've got the details here with that data step in there. We're going to go across into components and grab this flow step and bring that in there. And then we can select a flow, and there it is there, outside policy approval, apply. And we can then update. So this one, unlike business rules where you have to deactivate, you don't actually have to deactivate. You can have it remaining activate and just use this update feature, which is good because you don't have to go through that whole process of deactivating it. So there we go. We have now an automated approval flow connected back to the business process flow. Close that down. Done. And now it is the most exciting part. We are going to create a model-driven app. Does it feel like you've already created a model-driven app? Well, you haven't yet. What you've done is created all of the underlying pieces. We've created the components for the app. We've done the forms, the views. We've created the data tables, all of that stuff. But the actual creation of the app itself is the easiest part, and it all comes together beautifully. So first thing we need to do, let's go back up to the top level of the solution, and we are going to publish all customizations. So this brings it all together ready so that when we create an app, it's going to be ready to view live. So we don't need to publish all the way. You'll see, again, I'm going to let this run in real time. You'll see that the publishing process can take 30 seconds or a minute or a couple of minutes, depending on how much is in there. You don't want to be doing that all the time. As long as you're saving, everything is fine. You can go away, come back the next day, and you're all good. Publish is really sort of pushing it live so that you can start working with it. And so the next step that we're going to do here, you can see publish all customizations succeeded is, again, within our solution, new app, model-driven app. And this is bringing up what is the name of our app. So this is going to be our asset management app. You can give it a description if you like. Create. Okay, good. we've created an app. What we need to do now is bring in the tables that we've been working with and create that navigation menu down the side. But that's all there is to creating the app, because we've done all the work in Dataverse, creating all those pieces, bringing together the app itself. This part that we're doing now with a few clicks is bringing in responsive, accessible app with all those buttons across the top and all the structure and everything like that. There's so much of this is done for you just in that action of create a model-driven app. So what we're going to do here is add pages in. So we're going to add in tables that we've just created, so we can go next. Now this is where, if you've used your solution, your publisher code to start, so mine was LMC, if you remember what yours is, if you do that, look at that. It's actually really easy to find all of the custom tables that I've created. So I'm going to go in and check all of those. And what I want to do here is uncheck the show in navigation. If you check show in navigation, it will just build the navigation menu for you with all those things. But reordering and grouping them is a bit of a pain. I prefer to do the navigation. It's called a sitemap. I prefer to do it separately and put things in the order that I want. So that's just my recommendation. So we're going to do that. I also want to find the contact table, which is not an LMC table. That's just a standard one that was already there. So we're going to do that, and we are going to click add, and then all of these things are added into my app. Now this is a preview of what the app will look like. So you can see my navigation menu starting to form down the side here, but because I unchecked that box, I didn't put anything in it. So there's two steps here. The first one is to say, hey, model-driven app, these are the tables that are part of your app, because you might have within your Dataverse environment different app experiences built on top of that Dataverse data. You might have another app that's just like a list, a contact list or something like that. So you need to say for this app, which tables are part of it. So that's my definition there. I don't actually want everything in the navigation menu. So you'll see the asset check when I go back in here. I didn't put the asset check in the navigation menu because I don't need or want people to access it from there. It only comes up once you're inside that asset allocation and you're clicking through. So you can have that distinction. Not all of the Dataverse tables go into every model-driven app, and not everything that you add to your app necessarily has to go into the navigation menu. So over on the side here, we are in the pages. What have we added into the app? This piece is where we can deal with our navigation. So what we've got here, navigation bar, it's giving us one to start with. So this is group 1 and sub area 1. Can't see it there yet. So if we go back and mimic what we've done here, I'm going to come back to reporting and dashboards in a later module. So we're going to put in organization and employees as the first group. So we're going to go over here, call this one organization. Okay, so far so good. Still not appearing on the menu. It won't appear until you have a sub area. So you can't just have a heading with nothing under it. You have to have something in there. For my sub area, what am I bringing in? I want a table. Which table do I want? It's actually the contact table. So if I start typing and bring that in, that's, oh, look, did you see? That just happened there. Now, title, I don't want it to be called sub area 1. This first one, you just have to do a bit more typing so you can see that that's in there. The default icon is fine because the contact table comes with its own icon. All right, good. Let's add another group. So we've got the asset management group with assets and asset allocations in here. So I'm going to go add group. This one is called asset allocation. No, sorry, asset management. Goodness me, too many words. Asset management. All right. And then I want to add a sub area. Again, be careful of where you've clicked because I'm highlighted on asset management. I add my sub area. That's where it's going to put it. Select my content type, table, select my table. I want the asset table, and it automatically fills the name in when you do it this way. Add, bang, it's in there. And now I can add another sub area under that. Again, I want another table and I want my asset allocations, and I can add that in there as well. So you can see that starting to build out in there. If you want to change the order of anything, you can go in here and say move up or move down. But this is what I mean about, and you can take a whole section and move it up and down as well. If I move it up from there, it'll go up into the other section or down again. This is why I don't add all the tables in. I mean, for this amount of tables, it might have been fine, but I find I usually want to put groups and the move up, move up, move up. If you've got 20 tables in there, that would just be tedious beyond belief. So I just prefer to do it this way. That's our app. We're going to do some more things in the following modules to add some extra things, some dashboards, play with some settings, bring in some business process automation, but you've created the app at this point. Let's do this. Save. And because we've published everything else that's going on, we can publish from here. Are you ready for it? And then you can play. So this is where we're going to launch the app. So it's published. We'll get another sort of final preview of it coming through here. And play. Now, don't be disappointed that it's blank because we haven't got any data in there yet. So there we go. Now, it doesn't look exactly like my other one just yet, but so far so good. So a few things to notice because you've seen me build this whole thing. Did you see me build any of this functionality? No. Create model-driven app does all of that. All of that is built in for you. Haven't got my dashboards in there yet. We're going to come back to that. Home, recent, pinned, all of those things are there. Those icons we created earlier are showing up. You didn't see them in the preview, but they're working just fine. So all of that stuff is just done. So what we're going to do, let's create some contacts. So this is where you go in and, firstly, give yourself a round of applause at this point. What we do here is go in and create some data in the app. So let's create our contacts in here. So let's put Sandra Cullett back in so we can go in and we enter the first name. And you can add your friends and family or your real workmates or whatever it is in here. I'm just going to kind of make up some stuff. We can put in the business phone. So this is the experience that the user would have if they were entering. So for you as a learner, you're just putting in some stuff. That's far too many digits for a mobile. I'm getting overexcited. And you can fill in the address and so on. We can fill in her job title. Maybe she's in the sales department. Now the line manager lookup, there's no one else in there yet, so we could add a new contact from there, but we'll just save that. When the profile picture comes in, so again, you can choose your profile picture in there. And we just find, a picture from download some pictures of people and add them in. You can play around with the timeline here as well. So we can go in here and add in appointments, phone calls, activities, tasks, all of those things. So have a bit of a play around, do all of that. Let's go in and create an asset as well. So we can go in here and create a new asset. We'll give it a name. We'll call this one the iPhone 14. Serial number, oopsie. I pressed too many keys at once there. That is a phone. The acquisition date is today. Purchase value $14.99, and we can put in the description and so on. Save it. Now it's giving me asset ID must be filled in. So we've got a problem here because this is a mandatory field, except that it's an auto number field. So the auto number field should just be populating itself. I shouldn't have to type something in there. So this is a problem. I'm going to show you how you can fix this because typically when you're building model-driven apps, you do need to kind of correct things you've done along the way. And it's absolutely possible to do that, even though we've done, everything's great. Well, once you see it on the screen and start to test that data entry experience, you'll notice things that you go, no, that's not what I intended or whatever. So it's absolutely possible to go back and fix things up. So let's sort this one out. I'm going to go back into my maker experience and back to the solution. I need to find that table, which is the asset table, and find that column, because every column in here has an option to say this is mandatory or not. We didn't really play with that much earlier, but that's something that that you should be aware of. So we'll wait for this to come up. I'm going to go back into tables here on the right hand side, and I want to go into my asset table and then the columns within that table. Very loud motorbike going past my house right now, just for a bit of background reality. And then we want this asset ID. So if I click on that, you'll see we've got these properties on the side here that are, there we go, required, business required. I want to make that optional. Save. And then if I want to see that come through in the app to retest it, I do have to publish again, because publishing is that thing that pushes it through. So we just navigate back to the all there and push that through as publish all customizations. What I would typically do when I'm doing this, I wouldn't go in and make one change and then publish, because the publish thing can take a couple of minutes to go through. So you want to test out a few things and make those changes rather than doing it. But you'll see the publish is quite quick when there's only one change that's been published there. Let's reload that. And when you've got a change that's been taken in, generally what you want to do is a hard refresh actually. So I'm going to do like a Control F5 and actually do that, because you can see that was still mandatory. So the sort of normal refresh doesn't do it, but hopefully, there we go. The mandatory thing is gone now. So let's try this again. We're going to say this is an iPhone 14. We are putting in our serial number. We've got the asset type as a phone. Acquisition date is today, and the purchase value, put in the description as well. Save, and because this is an auto number, there we go, that's worked now. Much better. All right, so go ahead, create some people, create some assets in your app. You're going to need at least one of each before you create an asset allocation, but let's go through and bring in our asset allocation here. So now we have got business process flow across the top. This is going to be a phone for Sandra Callett. There we go. I've already typed that one before. Look for the employee. Now I've only got one in there, so that's a bit easy. Requested by is not mandatory. I don't actually have to fill it in, but I could put that one in. We're going to grab that asset so you can see those things working in there. Now let's test if this works. We're going to save it first just to bring that together. Does my outside policy work? If I go yes, there we go. There's my reason and there's my approval stage. What I want to do here is go in and run that approval for the first time. So just back to my solutions here. If I navigate back a level to outside of that solution and into all of my solutions for this environment, when we started, right back at the start of this course, we just had those things in there. So we've got the default solution. There's a bunch of just basic capabilities. This is the one I'm building. So the first time I run the flow, I'm going to do this. It's going to prompt me to log in. So the experience is a little bit more the first time round, and trigger that. And this triggering of the flow is going to prompt it to deploy that solution in the background. So again, it's asking me that first time to make sure that I'm authenticating that. You don't get that every time. Run that and done. Now, this won't happen straight away. Don't sit here now waiting for that to approve. It will be fine after it's done the first time, but go away and do some other stuff, and we will come back. And at some point here, once we start, looking back in the solutions, it won't happen straight away, but we will start to see the flow solutions being deployed into this environment. Whichever user, if you've used yourself, I used a different user, but if you've just used yourself, then you will see that flow come through in Teams or in Outlook or whatever. But generally speaking, give it about 15 minutes or so to run through. So you have now created a model-driven app. Please go ahead and add some more data in there. That's pretty much the thing, but more to come here, because we're going to add dashboards. I'm going to show you how to bring a Power BI in. We're going to play around with some settings, and also we're going to come back and see that flow working, and I'm going to add another business process flow automation so that you can bring that asset when you allocated a date. It's going to change the status of it to being allocated instead of available. So congratulations, you've built your first model-driven app, and now let's go that next step further and bring some more pieces into it. Let's have a look at some of the settings that you can work with in the app. And first up, I'm going to have a look at the system settings. So we open a new tab here. We're going to browse to aka.ms/pp/AC, which is the Power Platform Admin Center. This is where, as an admin, you can set up different security settings, and you've actually got some visibility on your data storage and usage and all sorts of things in here, which are a bit beyond what I'm going to get to. But once you're in the Power Platform Admin Center, you want to go to Environments. You want to choose the environment where you have been building your model-driven app, which for me is this one here called Asset Management. And I want to enable some things that are going on in here. So I'm going to go to Settings within that environment. And then within the product, we've got various things here. We're going to come back and have a look at security and permissions in one of the later modules here as well. But for now, I'm going to go in and have a look at some of the feature switches. And these are some of the things that I recommend you turn on. This is going to change depending on when you're watching this. I'm recording November 2022. Some of these things might be switched to on by default. So what tends to happen is Microsoft will release new features and not have them switched on by default. So you have to go in and say, yes, I'd like that switched on. So these are the ones I recommend you have switched on. But if you're watching this a year from now, maybe some of these are there. Always just go in and be aware of what features are there and make some decisions about which things are worth switching on. So along the side here, we've got various things here. Embedded content, enabling Power BI visualizations to be embedded in your app is something that you would likely want to do. If you scroll down here to advanced find options, the modern advanced find experience is something you want. That actually is already switched on, so that's something that's already there. Collaboration. Co-presence is actually quite good. Co-presence is the same as when you're working in a Word document and two people are editing it at once. You see both their faces in the icons at the top there. Same experience as that. So you can see straight away if you're in your model-driven app and a colleague is on the same screen, you can see that they're editing at the same time. So that's actually a cool thing to do. End users can add and join Teams meetings from appointments. That's already switched on as well. So you create an appointment, you can make it a Teams meeting. So again, that native, just like connection with the rest of the Microsoft platform. Co-authoring, if you're working with someone else, I really like this one as well. If you are building with someone else, which in a real world scenario you often are, if you're editing a form, then you can see things going on. Now, I don't know if there's a blip just happened on the side there. My approval flow just came through. So we're going to come back to that. So then what we've got here is this other piece here, which is the Dataverse search. I always turn that on. That is this search bar at the top. So this was my original demo app. This is the one we just built. You'll see it's not there. So what we want to do, I like that. That gives you that global search capability. I think that's already worth switching on. Bunch of other stuff here. And as I said, this will change, but worth having a look at that and worth exploring those things. We are good to go. We just click save in there. Now, the other type of settings you've got in here are personal settings. So if I go back into my app here and into the settings icon, you can get into advanced settings, which is the older way of getting back into what we just did there. Personalization settings is for the individual user to set. So it's worth understanding what can happen here because there are some important things for the user, especially in terms of like date format and number of things on the page and so on. So I've worked all along here with my dates in US date format because that's how it starts out of the box, but you can probably tell from my accent I am not in fact in the US, I'm in Australia, and many of us in all of the other parts of the world like to see the date format in a different way. So I'll show you how you can change that, as well as setting the right time zone for your app, because you don't want things coming up in the time zone that's not right. And if you're looking at things with just the 2 a.m. all the time when you're not in 2 a.m., that makes no sense. This can take a second to come up. There we go. Set personal options. So in the general thing here, time zone, GMT. I'm not in GMT. I'm in fact living in the future in this Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney time zone. So I'm going to set that. I am also going to go into my formats tab here, and this is where I can change the format. So it's currently in the United States format. I'm going to go to English Australia. So you'll see there's a range of different countries there. This is how we tend to look at the world. So I'm going to click OK on that. You will also have, a bunch of other personalization settings in here that you can have a look at as well. So it's worth going through those things. The other thing I like here, set the number of records shown in a list. So if you're working with a long list, 50 is often not enough. You might want to set that to 250. So those are things that are sort of set in those personal options. So then if you've got users in a multinational situation, they might want to be seeing the date format in a different way or set their time zones and so on. That can be done on a per user basis rather than those system settings where you are working on the things in the background. Then we're good to go. So what should happen here, my acquisition date there was showing 11/5, which is actually the 5th of November. The way I see that on the screen in my part of the world is 5/11. So let's give that a second and we'll give that a refresh. And that should come through. That will, as I said, also change all of the time zones and things in there as well for anything that's a time and a date. So there we go, 5th of the 11th. I'm much happy with that. And, for all of you outside of the US, I'm sure you are too. All right, so that's it for settings. Let's have a look at how we can bring dashboards in, both Power BI dashboards and the out-of-the-box dashboards. What we're going to do now is build out our model-driven app dashboard. So the dashboard capability in model-driven apps honestly allows you to do this kind of thing. You can have views on your dashboard, you can have some basic charts and things, but if you want to get really sophisticated with visualizations and graphs and stuff, you're really going to want to bring Power BI in. That is the tool that's available. If you want to bring in reports that are drawing from data outside Dataverse, that's also Power BI. So I'm going to show you both of those things and how to create this one. Back to our solution here. Let's just give this a refresh and see if our flow has come through for the approvals. So we should see that come through now. That's been about the right amount of time. And if you're watching this whole thing, you'll have heard that I heard the thing ping. There you go. So now you'll see in the solutions, we've got Microsoft Flow approvals, core solution approvals. Once you see that in there, then you know your approvals thing's ready to go, and that's a one-off thing. So we'll come back and see what's happened there again at the end. Back into my asset management solution for now. And what I'm going to do first is create that chart, that pie chart that we saw. And then I'm going to bring together a dashboard, which brings together that chart and some other views into a single screen. So I'm going to create a chart on the asset table. So this is the asset manager dashboard. This is an asset by allocation status. I'm just going to close down the other version of the app so I don't get confused here. So I'm going to go into my asset table, and from there is an option to create a chart. With charts you can do sort of basic pie charts, bar, column, donut, but yeah, you're going to stick with fairly basic charts if you're doing this. You'll see the limitations as we go through here. So I'm going to click on charts in here. We're going to add a new chart. And again, this is a bit of you'll see where it sort of leaps back into the older user interface behind the scenes that is slightly less nice to work with. And also slightly less speedy to work with. So we'll bring this up. So yeah, as I was saying, pie charts, column charts, bar charts, line, donut. That's about it really. If you want maps and overlaying different tables on each other and different drill down options and so on, then you're really going to want to go with Power BI for that. Okay, here it is. So we have got, these are the different charts we can use. I'm going to choose a pie chart here. I'm going to enter the name for the chart, which is assets by allocation status. Where do I want to put my field here? I want this to be the allocation status, and I want to count them. So this is a count rather than, you can sort of do average, max, min, sum, or whatever. And then my other axis, again, it's the same thing. I'm not doing anything sophisticated here. This view is not tied to it. This is just sort of saying which view do you want to see for a preview so that you can sort of see whether or not your chart is working. But we do actually want to run it, on the dashboard in the active assets view. So we'll just give that a second for the preview to come up. As I said, quite basic. That's pretty much what you can do. So at the moment in my model driven app, I actually only have one asset in there and it only has one status. So it's not a very useful preview, but it is absolutely fine. I will save and close that and done. And then we will see the chart appear here. So now we create a dashboard, which brings the chart and other views and things in here. So I'm going to go back into my top level of my solution to the start. And then from the top menu, we're going to go new dashboard, and you've got some options here, 2, 3, 4 column. I'm just going to start with a 2 column dashboard. Let's give this one a name. So this is going to be called the Asset Manager Dashboard. When it comes up, I get a little impatient with these old, the old UI experiences, but as I said, I just want to give you the genuine experience here. Most of the other YouTube tutorials on my channel are very snappily edited to take this stuff out, but for a full-length thing, I want you to get the sort of the real deal and not worry that it's you. So, come on. This is also fairly basic. We're gonna be presented with something that has 2 columns on the screen. You can change the width and you can change the height of the components, and the different things that you can bring into the dashboard here. You can bring in charts, which is what we've just done. You can bring in lists. So that piece that we're seeing on the dashboard here, this is just a list. So when we created lists earlier when we were building out our app, you might also want to create lists specifically for what you want to see on a dashboard. There are some other bits and pieces we can bring in here as well. So we'll give this a name, Asset Manager Dashboard. I want to bring a chart in here, so I'm going to click on that little chart icon, bring in that one that we just created. So we choose the table, we choose the chart. You can also have different views in here. So this one is, you know, active assets, but you can allow the user to sort of switch views to view the chart against different filtered data. So that's something you might want to consider in there. Right, we have got our asset. There it is there. And there's the active assets view and the very beautiful chart. That's not much going on. Over here, we want to bring a view in. So this is going to be my assets. And what did we make this one? This is my available assets. So I'm going to choose a different view here, which is the available assets, and add that in there. Now what I've done here, you'll see that's not a 50-50 split on the screen. So we can bring this one in here. We go across to the top and decrease the width of that. And then we can increase the width of that one. And when that happens, we just drag this. It's a bit fiddly. Drag that back up to the top. You'll see the red line appear there when that's ready to go. All right, I also put another thing here, which is the active asset allocation. So it doesn't all have to be off the one data table. So we're going to bring in another view here, which is our asset allocations, active asset allocations, all good. And then let's have this one take up the full width of the screen and bump it across. The other one drops out there. If you've got nothing in it, it won't appear on the screen. You don't need to worry about that. All right, save and close. So as you can see, it's fairly basic, but it does those straightforward things pretty solidly well. Now, once that's done, we can close. Before we go ahead, and we have to add that into the app, and we're going to go back and change the sitemap navigation to include it, then I want to show you how you can bring a Power BI dashboard in here as well, and then we'll add both of them in at the same time. So let's grab a new tab here. We're going to go to powerbi.microsoft.com, and you can start free. I've already got a sign in here, but if you click on try free, you'll be able to get a 30-day trial so that you can experiment with this as well. Obviously, if you want to use Power BI ongoing, you will need to buy a license, but for learning purposes, you can do that. I've only got 3 days left in my trial. better work with that quite promptly now. All right, so what I need to do here is create a Power BI report. And I'm not going to give you a Power BI lesson here. What I want to do is show you how you can bring an existing Power BI report in. So we're just going to work with a sample one because there are some pretty good sample ones here. Let's just close that notification here. So the first thing we need to do is create a workspace. This is one from the demo I had earlier, but I'm going to create a new one here. So I'm going to create a workspace, which is something that we're going to use. We're going to create a workspace. We're going to bring a report into that workspace. And then to bring that into model-driven apps, we link up to the workspace and the report. So I'm just going to call this Asset Management Dashboard Workspace, just so that workshop workspace, just so that I know, because I've got another version here. Clearly I'm demoing something that I've built in advance before, so I'm just going to make sure that I've got a unique name for it, but just call it asset management like I've done here. So that's enough. So that's basically just like a holding bucket that we can add content into. What I'm going to do here is go into add content, and because I don't have a report that I've built before, I'm going to go into this samples area, and the samples here are pretty good. So you can pick whichever one you like. I'm going to go with the IT spend because it's sort of in the zone of what we're doing. So let's grab that one. And that comes with a report and a dashboard and a bunch of sample data. So that's all good to go. And then I don't need to do anything else from there. What I do want to do now is go into the report that was created. So we've got a data set, which I'm not touching, but the report, I'm going to go into here, actually open it up so that we can see it. And then we want to pin it to a dashboard. So we've got this idea of dashboards and reports. I'm going to bring a dashboard into my model-driven app. So from here, we're going to go in and say pin to a dashboard. And then we want to give this dashboard a name. It's worth kind of naming this in a sensible way. So we're going to call this IT spend dashboard. All right. And we can pin that one in there. Don't need to do anything else. That's all we need to do from Power BI. Obviously, you would need to build the Power BI report and connect to your data, but that's a whole other thing that I'm not going to do now. So from here, what we're going to do is navigate back to the solution, and we can actually close that Power BI browser tab from here. I'm going to go in and say, let's create a new dashboard. So this is where we were before, but this time I'm choosing Power BI embedded. So we've got our native model-driven apps dashboard. This one is going to be called the IT spend. Now this is what it will display as when you bring it into the app. So this is called the IT spend dashboard, and it's a Power BI dashboard. We just pinned that report into a dashboard. I can choose that workspace. So it's asking me, where did you put it? This was the one that I just created. And then which Power BI dashboard is it? It's the IT spend dashboard that I just did, and we save that. So that has now created that as a dashboard. So now what I've got is two dashboards here. I've got my model-driven apps dashboard. I've got my Power BI dashboard. We need to add both of those things back into the app. So first of all, we are going to publish all customizations so that those dashboards are published and we're ready to work with them. And then we're going to go back and put them into the app and into the sitemap navigation, and then go in and refresh, and we'll see some new things happening in our app now since we created it. So we're going to go in and see the dashboards, we're going to see the new search bar, and we're also going to see the flow working because that's happened. All right, to edit my model-driven app, I go and find in here now, this is starting to see there's a lot, and see how all of these other things are being added in here. I haven't had to, the connection reference, like it's bringing in a bunch of other dependent stuff as I go along. It's actually very clever. What I want to do then is go in to find apps, because it starts to get to be a bit hard to find things. I can go into apps, but also you'll see it here. So what it's done is created with the model-driven app two components: model-driven app and sitemap. Don't click on the sitemap. That's going to take you back to an old editing experience. And I think you know by now how I feel about old editing experiences. You just want to edit the model-driven app, because now in this modern experience, the model-driven app includes the sitemap. You don't have to go to the dreadful old sitemap editor. What I want to do here is go to the navigation menu on the side. I'm going to add a group, and this group is going to be called reporting or dashboards or whatever you want to call that. So we go over here, we're going to call this reporting. Now again, the group is not appearing there because there's nothing in it yet, but I do want to move it up and move it up so that it's above organization and asset management. Under that, I want to add a sub area. And this time I'm not bringing in a table, I'm bringing in a dashboard. Which dashboard am I bringing in? We've got system dashboards and Power BI dashboards. So the first thing is I want my asset manager dashboard. So we're going to bring that in. That's the model-driven app dashboard that I created. And there it is. We should see our very sophisticated pie chart. It's the worst pie chart ever. You really have to have some data in your app to see this working properly. And then I'm going to add another sub area in here, which is another dashboard. And this time it is my IT spend dashboard. Now you don't have to add them all into the navigation menu, because you can actually go in there and sort of drop down. But depending on what you want to do to make that easier, you can bring those in. All right, looking good. Let's save that and publish it. And now we'll go ahead and play, and we'll pick up all of those other things that have happened along the way here. We've got a couple more things we're going to do after this. We need to get our security modeling in order. I'm also going to show you how we can do another kind of automation in there, because I want you to get that sense of how all of this really comes together. So let's click play on that, and how are we going so far? There we go. We've got our search bar in there. That's a big improvement. So, with all of my active contacts in there, I can do a search for Sandra, and that will come up. Please do add more stuff in there. You'll have a much more fun experience. We have got our dashboard. So let's have a look here. We've got the asset manager dashboard. So again, not much data in there, but as we start to add the data, you can see it coming through. So all of those things are working. My IT spend dashboard, there's my beautiful Power BI report. And let's also have a look at that flow working now. So if I go back into my asset allocation, where I triggered that off earlier, we can go in here and I'm going to bring across my other user here who receives the request. So there we go. There's the request that was sent through. Didn't add any comments in there. We're going to say approve. And then we'll get Dan out of the way. And at the moment, I hadn't filled that in, but we should be able to see, nevertheless, this coming through. So we'll just give that a refresh and we should see that approval status come through. And then the next time we do one, we'll fill it in properly and we'll see it working. But you do have to go through that. You sort of need to have a test record to get that approval stuff deployed in the back end. There we go, approved. All right, all good. So we're in good shape. We've built our model-driven app. We've added some extra stuff. We've played with some of those settings and got some dashboards and things in there. Next up, we are going to have a look at how to do some automation and then get our security and sharing in order. One of the huge benefits of building on this platform, so we can do all this amazing stuff with building out the model-driven app, is that you can get extra automation and stuff and it's all built in, which is why I really want to show you this extra piece here. What we want to do is to say, when an asset is allocated and we've put in an allocation date, then go back to that asset and change the status of it. So you'll see here, we're going through this process. Let's assume it's all approved and everything, but this is sitting as available, but we want to take it off the available list, which will also then take it off the available dashboard and so on. So this is the kind of thing you can do, is to start to put all of these automations and things in here. So let's say, this is done now. We're working through that process. That's all approved. We've done our asset check, so I won't worry too much about that, but let's build an automation before we go any further. So back into the solution, new automation, Cloudflow, and this time it's an automated Cloudflow. So we had an instant one before because we were going to trigger it based on a button press, but this is going to be based on when that allocation date, when we go, yes, this allocation date has happened, go back and find that related asset and update the date. So we're going to go in here and grab a name here. So, sorry, don't grab a name. We're going to go in here and give this flow a name. So we'll call this one update asset on allocation. And what we want in here is a trigger that is a Dataverse trigger. And it's going to be based on when a row in Dataverse is added, modified, or deleted. Let's create that. Now, there is one more piece of information we're going to need here. I'm just going to open another tab and get make.powerapps.com up again, because I need one of the schema names of one of the columns. So it's useful if you get this in advance, but I'll quite often do it this way of opening another tab. So if I go over into, just wait for it for a second because we need to make sure we're in the right environment. So if you open up another tab again here, it's going to go back to your default environment. I'm going to go into my asset management environment, which is where I have been working. I can go just straight into the Dataverse table here. I'm not editing anything. I just want to have a look at something. So within the tables, if you want to search for something here, oh, there's my asset table. It's nice and easy. So what I want to do is get the asset allocation table, the date, because we're triggering this based off a change just to that date. So I'm going to go in here and view my columns, and I want to get this asset allocation date. So I can click on that. And what I want here, I'm going to scroll down, go into advanced options. I want the logical name, this one here, not the schema name, but the logical name. So just copy that. Keep it safe on your clipboard, all right? I'm going to go back into the flow. When a row is added, modified, or deleted, what we want this flow is to trigger on when a row is added or modified, because it could be something where we're creating this all at once. The table is the asset. Could have typed it, would have been quicker, but it's an A. I thought it would be easier. You can see how much is going on behind the scenes in the standard stuff. Asset allocation. The scope, we want this to be across the whole business. So you can have automation that only applies to certain groups of users or certain users. So when it's added or modified, when this table is added or modified, business unit, then which columns are modified, because we don't want this to run. We don't want the flow to run every single time anything is updated on that table. They just run unnecessarily. Here's where we take that precious little bit that we just copied before, paste it in there. That's the column that is being changed. That's it. So then what we need to do is to say, that's our trigger. So when we are going to, let's rename this. So we're going to say when an asset, so we're going to name this to say when an asset allocation date is signed. Then what do we want to do? So the first thing we want to do, because we're going to do something to change the asset, is we need to get that asset. This is similar to what we did with the approval before. The asset allocation date is changed. Get the related asset from that asset allocation. So that's again in Dataverse. We want to get a row. We want to get an asset. Which asset? The one that's related up here. So again, if we just type it in, you'll find there's the asset value. It's that one there that you want. So it's the asset that's in that related lookup. So we can rename this one to say get the related asset. All right. Now we want to update that. So we add another new step in Dataverse. We want to update a row. Which row? We want to update the asset. Which asset? The one from the previous step. So from get related asset, but if you want to ever find it, there it is, unique ID, but you can just type the name. So there it is. You always want the one that's the unique identifier. Asset ID is that auto number that we had. Don't use that. There is underneath a unique identifier, like a 30-something character unique identifier that we haven't seen anywhere and that you didn't need to create, but that's the one that uniquely identifies that record. That's what you should always be using. It's like your primary key if you're familiar with that concept. What do we want to update in that? We want to update the allocation status to be allocated. And that's it. Not too bad, right? So you can do these kinds of things to put automation into your application. It doesn't just exist in isolation as a database. You can do all sorts of things there. So we'll wait for that one to save and go back. And then we can give that a test run. You don't actually need to publish a flow. So we should be able to go in here now. I would actually just give the app a refresh just to make sure it's picking up latest things that have come through. So we should be able to go in here now and let's say it's past the asset check. I'm just going to bypass doing the right the right table in there. So we'll say that that's satisfactory. Again, you might want to kind of do the similar automation of that. There is our allocation date. So let's say we're going to allocate it to her on Monday, and we save that. So that will prompt that change. And now if I click through to that asset, it can take 20 seconds or so to run. So we'll just give that a refresh. Haha, allocated. And now if we go back to our dashboard here, we will see, because this is our list of available assets, it is no longer there, and our pie chart is now showing that it's allocated even though there's still only one thing on the pie chart. So there you go. That's how you can automate some of your business processes. Last thing now, we need to share this app with other people and make sure they've got the right security and permissions, and then you've pretty much mastered it. All right, security. This is something that is quite complex within model-driven apps, and I'm going to show you the basic concepts so that you've got a handle on it, but you can get very granular with security. You can set up business units within your organization. You can have hierarchies within that. You can have different permissions across all of these tables. So use case here is something where, you know, you're building something for a big scale across the organization, and certain group of people are managing their assets here, but they shouldn't be able to allocate them, or they shouldn't be able to see the employee details. So you can actually create different security roles to enable that kind of thing. This is one of the big sort of rich areas that you can work with in here. So the first thing that we're going to do here is go back into my main sort of area here and into the apps area. And from within apps, we can go to here and click share. Now, if you've worked with Canvas apps before, some of this looks a bit familiar, but it's not quite exactly the same. So a couple of core concepts here. First of all, your app itself has to have a security role. So this whole thing is based on security roles. So we need to say which security roles are associated with this app, because then, you know, the app knows here are the security roles that I can allocate out, and then we put people into those security roles, and that's how that is managed. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the app and manage which security roles it will use. So we can go in here, we can see these are the list of security roles. So we've got all of these roles that are sitting in here, but when I've built a bunch of different tables and things like that, I'm actually going to need to manage the security roles to include those, because all of these out-of-the-box security roles have no idea about all of the stuff that I've just created. So what we want to do from here is go into manage security roles to create one or more security roles specific to this app that can be allocated to the user. Now I'm just going to do one security role here, which is quite basic, but in that example before, you might have a single security role for an asset administrator who just has access to the asset table and doesn't have access to other things. And then you might have one for a manager that has other things. Just be aware that if you have multiple security roles, the permission is additive. If you stack them on top of each other, they get more permissions. It doesn't kind of make it less restrictive. What you want to do, the recommendation here is not to edit the existing security roles. What we want to do is save as, basically, and create a new one. So the basic user security role is the one I'm going to start with here, because that's a nice easy one to work with. So I'm going to go here into more actions and copy that role, and we're going to give it a new name. So I'm going to call this basic user asset management. Now I'm just going to make my basic users able to do everything in here rather than creating multiple ones, but you'll get the concept and you'll see what's possible to do. So there it is there, basic user asset management, and I can click through and open that up. And this is a bit of a mind-boggling matrix of permissions that you see on the screen here in understanding what you can do. So this is going to bring up that security role. Let's just maximize this on the screen so that we can see what we're doing, but also be aware that it's in a different pop-up experience. So we're just going to close this when we're done. And what we will see when it comes up is a series of tabs and a series of different tables across the whole of the Dataverse environment that we're working with. Worth noting also that the security roles are particular to the environment. At the end, we're also going to bring them into the solution, so that if you bring that to another solution, you're also bringing the definition of that security role across with you. So here we have our role name, core records. Are you ready for the matrix? Not quite what you would expect, right? So here are the core records. So let's have a look at something like contact, and we have a row of permissions across here. And this is our little key to what these things are doing. None selected means no access. Won't even know. That user with that role logging in won't even know it's there. User level permission, my records, this concept of the owner, my records, I can do the things. Business unit is my team, sideways. Parent child, manager down, and then organization-wide full permission across the database. And here are the permissions that you can work with for each of these. Let's see if we can just zoom this up a little bit more. Let's look at account because that's easier. So we have a create permission, which means I can create a new record. Read, I can see it. Write is the edit permission, and delete. Append and append to are about adding related records. So things in the timeline, things like those other related records, assign it to another user, and share access. I prefer not to use share. Share is sort of I prefer not to use share. I'm not going to go too deep into that. So we've got all of these things here. So let's see what happens at the moment. The person with this basic user role can create an account. I haven't used accounts. I'm just going to use account because it's a bit, if pretend it's contact, they can create it. They can read only their own. So if you've got multiple users in there, they're only seeing their own. They can only edit their own, and they can only delete their own. If I change this, so if you click on the, let's say I wanted them to be able to see all of them in the database, but only edit their own, then that's what that's done. I don't want them to be able to delete at all, so I can change that. So this is how you can work with those things. And this is very granular. You can go through and sort of create all of those things. Let's just zoom it back again. You've also got within here miscellaneous privileges for things like being able to bulk delete and work with things. There's so much here. This is like, I could probably spend a whole day just on this, which I won't. We've got these other core things. So these are the core records. These are some of the things that work across some of the Dynamics applications, which you won't have if you're building just a model-driven app. But the thing you want to go into here is this custom entities, custom tables, because everything you've just created, so if we scroll down here, asset, asset allocation, asset check, no permissions at all. So you need to go in and apply at least one security role with these permissions. Easiest way to do this is if I click on the name there, it will push it across the whole way. So we can say, do you know what? I've just got a basic scenario here where we're letting everyone come in and do all of those things with asset and asset allocation and asset check. Perhaps I don't want them to be able to delete, so I can do that. But you can see how you can fiddle around with it. For now, I'm just going to create a basic role where everyone has access to those things. You also want to make sure that your business process flow has permission. So if we go in here, nobody has permission for that either. So let's just make sure that one's sorted out. And then save and close. So in a real world scenario, you would actually spend a lot of time and a lot of design work on figuring out those security and permissions if you're doing something complex. If you're doing a single use app for a particular department, then something like I've just done would possibly suffice. Let's close that tab and go back to this experience here. Before we add it into the app, let's just cancel out of that. We want to go in here and add into our solution an existing security role. So the one we've just created there, basic user asset management, add that in, go back to the top here and publish all customizations. Now you can actually create a security role from the Power Platform Admin Center. I tend to do it this way rather than via that share thing and having to go back in and out. But where we were before, Power Platform Admin Center, if you go into the settings, you'll see here in the users and permissions, the ability to click through to security roles there. You can also assign security roles to users, which we're about to do. So that's another way that you can work with it that might feel a little bit more intuitive to manage. All right, everything in there. Let's go back now into our app and share. We need to assign the security role to the app first. So we're going to go through here. Here it is, basic user asset management, and share. So now the app has that security role as part of it. And then what we're going to do is add security roles to the users. So let's say that Alex Hunter is someone that we want to share this with. So we can go in here and make this person the basic user and perhaps not a system administrator and share. Be aware, this doesn't send an email to the person the way it does if you've used Canvas apps. So what you do need to do is, as you're going through and adding those security roles in there, once you've got your app here, is just grab that URL, share that with the user, rather than it doesn't sort of automatically go out in your email. We are done. How are you feeling? That's a lot of information. It's all organized here that you can go back and dip in and out. So we have built a complete model-driven app. We've added some advanced features. We've got our security and so on. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you've done all this in one go. Chances are you probably haven't. Please share this with anyone else who you think would benefit from seeing a complete tutorial. Please subscribe to the channel for every other video on this channel. I promise you is ever going to be much shorter than this. There's plenty of short form tutorials and things, and I'm adding to that all the time. Thank you to everyone who has supported and subscribed along the way. I'm doing this mostly because I've had so much support for the content. I just want to give back, and I really hope that this has been a valuable and fun experience for you building out your model-driven app. Thank you so much for watching.